Chapter 201. In the Crimson Sky Kingdom, the Divine Might Marquis, the Grand General of Agile Cavalry, Nye Yuan, was undoubtedly the representative of the generals. Whereas in the aspect of ministers, the Prime Minister, Gu Yuting, was the most respected. Gu Yuting's status in the Crimson Sky Kingdom was extraordinary, and to a certain extent, he could be considered to be the spokesperson of the Emperor. Normally, all the large and small affairs of the Crimson Sky Kingdom had to go through his hands. Moreover, he himself was a half-step void stage expert. He's the son of Prime Minister Gu Yuting? Duan Lingtian frowned as he looked at Gu Xian, who was walking towards him with a menacing aura, and he was slightly bewildered. He was sure that today was absolutely the first time he'd seen this Gu Xian. However, this Gu Xian seemed to have extremely great enmity towards him, and this caused him to be rather puzzled. Presently, it had already been 4 months since Duan Lingtian had first arrived at the Imperial City. So, he was rather knowledgeable about some of the matters in the Imperial City. He'd also heard of the Prime Minister, Gu Yuting. Although Gu Yuting wasn't from a large clan, but because of the trust of the Crimson Sky Kingdom's Emperor, his Prime Minister estate was extremely famous in the Imperial City. Even the members of the 3 great clans of the Imperial City didn't dare rashly offend the Prime Minister estate, because everyone knew that behind Prime Minister Gu stood the Supreme Emperor of the Crimson Sky Kingdom. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian saw Gu Xian arrive before him. "Is there something you need?" Duan Lingtian's brows slightly twitched as he looked at Gu Xian and asked indifferently. "Duan Lingtian, I'm warning you, stay away from Bai Yao." Gu Xian's expression was gloomy, and his eyes emitted a gloomy sheen as he stared straight at Duan Lingtian. At this moment, he seemed to have transformed into a highly venomous crimson snake. Duan Lingtian came to a sudden understanding when he heard Gu Xian. Now he finally knew the reason why Gu Xian was so hostile towards him, so it was because of Princess Bai Yao. All along the way, he'd heard many discussions about him and Princess Bai Yao. Duan Lingtian didn't take those ridiculous guesses seriously and directly disregarded them. As far as he was concerned, there was no need to explain anything. "Bai Yao? You should be talking about Princess Bai Yao, right?" Duan Lingtian looked at Gu Xian calmly and asked. "Not bad." Gu Xian's eyes flashed, and his tone was somewhat condescending. "Did you hear what I said to you just now?" Duan Lingtian's face darkened. Not to mention that there was nothing going on between him and Princess Bai Yao. Even if there was something going on, it wouldn't have anything to do with this Gu Xian, right? Duan Lingtian scoffed at Gu Xian's haughty attitude, and a trace of anger rose in his heart. "So what if I heard it? So what if I didn't?" Duan Lingtian's tone was very calm. "Duan Lingtian, I know that your natural talent in the martial Dao is strong, and you're even a direct descendant of the Duan clan that is extremely sheltered, but in my eyes, you're nothing, understand?" Gu Xian's voice instantly became incomparably gloomy. In Gu Xian's eyes, in the Imperial City, and even the entire Crimson Sky Kingdom, only the members of the Imperial family and the Divine Might Marquis estate were worthy of his attention. As for those 3 great clans, they weren't worth mentioning in his eyes. His father was the Prime Minister, the spokesperson of the Crimson Sky Kingdom's Emperor. He was only below the Emperor and above all. "Oh!" Duan Lingtian suddenly laughed. "I'm really sorry, but you're also nothing in my eyes." After he finished speaking, Duan Lingtian didn't care about Gu Xian, who had a gloomy expression. He called out to Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun before walking out of Paladin Academy. "This son of Prime Minister Gu is too arrogant." Xiao Yu frowned. Obviously, he couldn't stand Gu Xian's attitude towards Duan Lingtian. It's not strange. After all, he has a powerful father. Moreover, this Gu Xian's natural talent isn't bad, and he might even inherit the position of Prime Minister in the future. Xiao Sun shook his head as he slowly spoke. Duan Lingtian didn't say anything. As far as he was concerned, Gu Xian was only a profligate son of rich parents. He was no different than Su Tong and Xuelang, who he crippled, so long as Gu Xian didn't go too far and didn't offend him. If Gu Xian went too far, he didn't mind teaching Gu Xian a lesson. That night, Duan Lingtian didn't cultivate, nor did he inscribe inscriptions. He'd finally realized the dream he'd always had, to sleep with the 2 little girls in his room and enjoy the pleasures of intimacy. The two girls seemed to have realized that Duan Lingtian would be leaving tomorrow and would be gone for at least a few months, so they allowed Duan Lingtian to do whatever he wanted. During the entire night, Duan Lingtian didn't know how many times he'd asked for it, and only when he was extremely tired did he fall into a deep sleep with the two little girls in his arms. The next day, after the two little girls got off the bed, their walking posture became slightly strange. A wisp of apology appeared on Duan Lingtian's face. Last night was too crazy. During breakfast, when facing their mother Li Ro's burning and ambiguous gaze, besides Duan Lingtian, who was thick-skinned and didn't pay attention to it, the two little girls lowered their heads and had embarrassed expressions. Little Black, Little White, stay at home and protect Kerr, Little Fei, and my mother. Understand? Duan Lingtian grabbed the two little pythons from his sleeve and tapped their little heads as he spoke in all seriousness. Hiss hiss, the two little pythons were more or less able to roughly understand Duan Lingtian's words, and they flicked their tongues as they nodded. Duan Lingtian saw a trace of reluctance in the intelligent eyes of the two little pythons. The two little pythons had obviously already begun to possess human nature. Mother, I'm leaving. At the entrance of the house, Duan Lingtian looked at his mother, who was tidying up his clothes, and had a smile on his face. Be careful, Li Ro said softly, with a bit of worry mixed in between her eyebrows. As the saying goes, a mother worries when a son travels 1,000 miles. Don't worry. Duan Lingtian nodded and smiled at the two little girls beside Li Ro. Help me take good care of my mother when I'm not here. I'll be back soon. Kerr and Li Fei both nodded. Two pairs of autumn eyes, glistening and teary. Xiong Quan, Jingru, when I'm not here, the family will depend on you too. Duan Lingtian looked at Xiong Quan and Jingru, who were standing at the side. Young master, don't worry. The two of them hurriedly nodded. In Jingru's eyes, there was also a trace of reluctance mixed in. In these few months, she had always been grateful to this young master who had unconditionally trusted her. It was because of this young master's care that her family could live a well-fed life. All right, you can go back. Duan Lingtian took a deep breath and turned to leave. He was really worried that if he took another glance, he wouldn't be willing to leave. Zhang Qian, Zhao Gang. After Duan Lingtian left the house, he suddenly spoke out. Whoosh, whoosh. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang instantly appeared by Duan Lingtian's side. Are the two of you following me, or returning to the Divine Might Marquis estate? Duan Lingtian asked. Young master, we'll go with you. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang spoke out in unison. Then continue to conceal yourselves. When we arrive at the battlefield, I'll further teach you techniques like tracking, concealment, and assassination. Duan Lingtian's brows raised as he slowly said, as long as I don't instruct you to, you're not allowed to reveal yourselves. Understand? Yes. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang hurriedly replied, and their eyes emitted burning gazes. They were filled with boundless yearning towards the various techniques Duan Lingtian planned to teach them. Before long, Duan Lingtian walked into Paladin Academy. Many people had already gathered in the martial arts practice grounds. Of course, most of them were from the Star General Department. Duan Lingtian had only taken 2 steps when he saw Xiao Sun waving his hand at him from afar, and he lightly smiled as he walked over. You two didn't bring a change of clothes? Duan Lingtian had a puzzled expression when he saw Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun both empty-handed. He'd also noticed that the other group of students were practically carrying bags of various sizes. Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun instead seemed to stand out like cranes in a flock of chickens. Look, Xiao Sun raised his hand and displayed the simple and unadorned ring on his hand. I asked for a spatial ring from my grandfather yesterday. My things are all in Xiao Sun's spatial ring. Xiao Yu smiled. Duan Lingtian, the one on your hand is a spatial ring as well, right? Xiao Sun glanced deeply at Duan Lingtian, then his gaze descended onto Duan Lingtian's hand. Duan Lingtian nodded. Duan Lingtian, looks like the Duan clan really thinks highly of you, to even give you such a precious thing as a spatial ring. Xiao Yu naturally thought that Duan Lingtian's spatial ring was given to him by the Duan clan, and he had a face full of envy. Even he, the grandson of the Aurora City's Xiao clan's supreme elder, didn't have a spatial ring. even to the extent that in the entire Aurora City Shao clan, only the Patriarch and the Supreme Elder had spatial rings. Duan Lingtian lightly smiled and didn't explain. Duan Lingtian. Right at this moment, a sonorous voice sounded out from afar. A slightly robust young man around the age of 25 slowly walked towards Duan Lingtian with a smile on his face. You are? Duan Lingtian looked at the person with a puzzled expression, and he could feel that the person didn't have any hostility. I'm Duan Zhu, a branch family disciple of the Duan clan, and a grade 6 student of the Star General Department. Duan Lingtian, the Patriarch asked me to pass this to you. The robust young man with a luggage bag on his arm extended his hand to pass a simple and unadorned ring to Duan Lingtian. It was a spatial ring. Under the surprised gazes of Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun, Duan Lingtian extended his hand to receive it. Then he nodded and smiled to Duan Zhu. Thank you. You're welcome. After passing the spatial ring to Duan Lingtian, Duan Zhu laughed slyly before turning around and leaving. Duan Lingtian claimed ownership of the spatial ring, and he noticed that besides a few million silver, there was nothing else within the spatial ring. It ought to have been given to him by the Patriarch Duan Rufeng to store his luggage. This spatial ring only had a space of 1 cubic meter, and it belonged to the lowest grade of spatial ring. Duan Lingtian, could it be that the spatial ring in your hand wasn't given to you by the Duan clan? Xiao Yu looked at Duan Lingtian with an astonished expression. That was given to me by the Grand Elder, but I never imagined that the Patriarch would send another one over. I'll take the money inside, and you can use this spatial ring. Chapter 202. However, Xiao Yu didn't accept the spatial ring that Duan Lingtian passed over, and he shook his head. Duan Lingtian, this is too precious, I can't accept it. You should keep it yourself, or leave it for Li Fei to use. Just take it since I'm giving it to you. When did you become so wishy-washy? Duan Lingtian shook his head as he stretched out his hand and directly stuffed the spatial ring into Xiao Yu's hand as he spoke angrily. Xiao Yu's eyes flashed as a trace of gratitude flashed within, but he didn't refuse again. If he were to refuse again at this time, then it would seem slightly pretentious. Thank you. Xiao Yu smiled at Duan Lingtian, and a trace of warmth arose within his heart. Only a grade 7 weapons craftsman was able to refine a spatial ring. Although it wasn't a spirit weapon, it was still a rare item, and the value of just one was no less than a few million. Moreover, it was a priceless item. The Vice Dean has arrived. Suddenly, someone spoke, and instantly, the entire martial arts practice grounds became silent. The gazes of everyone descended onto the gray figure that slowly walked over from afar. It was a gray-clothed old man who revealed a trace of dignity between his brows as he walked over with large strides with an imposing manner that shot into the sky like a rainbow. He was precisely the Vice Dean of Paladin Academy, Zhan Xiong. After Zhan Xiong arrived, he spoke loudly. Students of the Star General Department, stand to the right. Students of the Star Mastermind Department, stand to the left. As soon as Zhan Xiong finished speaking, the stream of people in the martial arts practice grounds split into two. There were exactly 300 people of the Star General Department gathered together, forming a dense mass. On the other hand, there were 12 people standing sparsely in the Star Mastermind Department. Duan Lingtian, Xiao Yu, and Xiao Sun, these 3 Year 1 students, occupied a quarter of the people there. Duan Lingtian noticed that the Prime Minister's son, Gu Xian, was also within the group of people of the Star Mastermind Department, and beside him were 2 other people. Duan Lingtian had some impression of these 2 people, as they were by Gu Xian's side yesterday. Meanwhile, Gu Xian noticed Duan Lingtian's group of 3, and his face sank as he frowned. Vice Principal. Gu Xian suddenly opened his mouth. His voice was loud and suppressed most of the sparse voices in the martial arts practice field. Zhan Xiong looked at Gu Xian when he heard this. He naturally knew Gu Xian, the son of the Prime Minister. Gu Xian, do you have anything to say? Vice Dean, according to what I know, according to the rules of our Paladin Academy, when it comes to the battlefield, the lowest requirement for Star General students is the 2nd year, and the lowest requirement for Star Mastermind students is the 4th year. These 3 people are only 1st-year Star Mastermind students. I suspect that they want to fish in troubled waters and blend in with us to head to the battlefield at the northwest border. Gu Xin pointed at the Duan Lingtian trio. His voice was loud, and his eyes were filled with disdain. For a moment, the gazes of all the students present fell upon Duan Lingtian and the other two. Isn't that Duan Lingtian? Also, the two people beside him seemed to be first-year students of the Star Mastermind department. Could it be that they really want to fish in troubled waters and mix in with us to head to the Northwest battlefield? Humph. As long as it isn't someone on the list, wanting to fish in troubled waters is practically impossible. Many students pointed and discussed animatedly. Gu Xian had a complacent expression as he glanced at the Duan Lingtian trio, and the corners of his mouth curled into a sneer, as if he'd already seen the scene of the Vice Dean Zhan Xiong driving the three of them away. This Gu Xian is really as disgusting as a fly. Xiao Sun's face sank, and a trace of fierceness flashed within his eyes. Humph. Duan Lingtian's gaze went cold as he took a step forward and looked at Gu Xian. Before Zhan Xiong could speak, Duan Lingtian spoke first with a loud voice that shot into the sky. Gu Xian, you keep talking about rules, but why have I never heard of the rule that first-year students of Paladin Academy's Star Mastermind department can't enter the battlefield? Humph. Gu Xian met Duan Lingtian's gaze when he heard this, and he said with a mocking expression, although there isn't a written rule, but according to the past practice of Paladin Academy, it has always been like this. I can be sure that the three of you surely want to fish in troubled waters and slip through. Practice? Traces of coldness appeared in Duan Lingtian's eyes as he sneered. You said it was a practice. Could it be that a practice can't be broken? You keep saying that we're fishing in troubled waters, then I'm curious, on what basis did you make this decision? Just because we're first-year students, you think we're inferior to you? You think we don't have the qualifications to appear here? Of course. How much do first-year students, especially students of the Star Mastermind department, know about the Tao of Mastermind? Even if people like the three of you enter the battlefield, you'll only be a burden. Gu Xian sneered, and his words were filled with disdain towards Duan Lingtian's group of three. Enough. Right at this moment, Zhan Xiong interrupted. Gu Xian, Duan Lingtian's group of three are indeed people on the list. You don't have to doubt this. Duan Lingtian was strongly recommended by Teacher Sima. As for Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun, they're the junior marquis of the Divine Might Marquis estate, and they were personally added to the list by the commander of the reinforcements this time, General Nie Fon. Humph. So it's three fellows that got in through the back door. Hearing Zhan Xiong's explanation, Gu Xian looked at Duan Lingtian's group of three with a face full of ridicule and disdain. Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun's faces sank as they glared angrily at Gu Xian. Idiot! Duan Lingtian looked at Gu Xian, and the corners of his mouth curled into a wisp of coldness as he slowly spat out two words. What did you say? Gu Xian's face went grim. This Duan Lingtian actually dared to call him an idiot? As the son of the Crimson Sky Kingdom's prime minister, it was the first time in his life that he'd been humiliated like this. Instantly, his chest was completely filled with flames of rage. Duan Lingtian turned his head and no longer paid any attention to the exasperated Gu Xian, allowing him to rage there. Duan Lingtian. Gu Xian's face sank, and his eyes flickered with traces of a vicious sheen as he stared at Duan Lingtian, and he swore in his heart, "Just you wait, there will be a day when I'll kill you." Although he wished for nothing more than to explode out and kill Duan Lingtian right now, he still had some misgivings. Firstly, the Vice Dean was present now, and if he were to take the initiative to make a move, he would surely be in a passive position. Secondly, if Duan Lingtian used that strange inscription to attack him, he would be unable to guard against it. After all, even the son of the City Guard Army's commander, Xuelu, Xuelang, an existence at the second level of the Origin Core stage, had his entire cultivation destroyed by Duan Lingtian's inscription. He'd always felt fear towards the inscription in Duan Lingtian's hand. So, if he didn't have 100% confidence, he wouldn't easily make a move. As the son of the prime minister, he naturally wasn't a simple-minded, well-developed idiot. Although he hated Duan Lingtian to the extreme in his heart, he wouldn't rashly make a move. This Gu Xian is pretty good at enduring. Duan Lingtian's eyes squinted, and he was slightly surprised when he saw Gu Xian not make a move for a long time. As far as he was concerned, This Gu Xian was much more dangerous than Su Tong and Xueling. This was a person that knew how to endure silently. This sort of person was generally adept at hiding in the shadows and waiting for an opportunity to make a move, and was extremely terrifying. All right, all of you go to the entrance now. General Nie Fan has already ordered people to prepare horses for all of you and is waiting there. Before long, 312 Paladin Academy students walked out of Paladin Academy in a formidable array under the lead of the Vice Dean, Zhan Shtong. Outside Paladin Academy's entrance, more than 300 armored soldiers were each sitting on a horse. In each of their hands, there was another horse that they were leading. These extra horses were obviously prepared for the group of Paladin Academy students. Vice Dean Zhan, the curly-bearded man that wore armor and had a stocky build, spurred his horse forward and arrived before Zhan Xiong before nodding to Zhan Xiong. Duan Lingtian looked at the curly-bearded man and his brows slightly twitched. He was able to discern that this curly-bearded man was in existence at the nascent soul stage and possessed extraordinary strength. Vice General Jiao, these are the students on the name list this time. Zhan Xiong slowly spoke in response. I'll be troubling Vice Dean Zhan. The curly-bearded man nodded, then instantly opened his mouth and roared, Students of Paladin Academy, get on your horses. Instantly, all 312 Paladin Academy students, including Duan Lingtian, got on their horses. There were exactly 312 horses. Vice Dean Zhan, farewell. The curly-bearded man cupped his hands towards Zhan Xiong, then spurred his horse to gallop out. Let's go. For a time, Duan Lingtian and the others mixed in with the armored soldiers and followed behind the curly-bearded man as they walked out of the imperial city in a formidable array. All along the way, they caused a great sensation. The people on the streets moved aside and saluted with their gazes towards this group of people. These are the reinforcements that Paladin Academy sent to the northwest border battlefield? As expected of the students of Paladin Academy, all of them are in high spirits and have extraordinary bearings. There's actually a youth, wearing violet clothes. Could it be that he's that genius martial artist, Duan Lingtian, that's been giving rise to much discussion recently? He should be. Besides him, Paladin Academy probably doesn't have such a young student. Before long, the gazes of many people descended onto Duan Lingtian, and they all exclaimed in surprise. Duan Lingtian became the center of attention all along the way. Gu Xian's expression was extremely unsightly when he saw Duan Lingtian being so popular, and his gaze became even more gloomy and cold. Fifth Prince's estate. Within the pergola, a young man with an extraordinary bearing was sitting across from a middle-aged general in light armor. At this time, that Duan Lingtian should have already set out. The young man's eyes focused as he slowly spoke. This time, we'll make sure he doesn't return. The middle-aged general's eyes focused as they flashed with bloodthirsty killing intent. Commander Xue, don't speak so early. Don't forget, Duan Lingtian has an offensive inscription that can deal with origin core martial artists. According to my knowledge, even the Su clan's Grand Elder's grandson, Su Tong, had his Dantian crippled by Duan Lingtian using an offensive inscription. Slight fear appeared on the young man's face. Don't worry, Fifth Prince, with a nascent soul martial artist making a move this time, we'll surely succeed. The middle-aged general was precisely the City Guard Army's commander, Xuelu. Chapter 203. Outside the Imperial City, on the spacious open ground, a group of armored soldiers gathered together like a black cloud pressing down on the city, and their imposing manner shot into the sky like a rainbow. These are the reinforcements? Looks like there's only around 10,000 people. It seems to be a bit too little, right? Xiao Yu frowned as he gazed at the group of soldiers that stood in neat rows in the distance. Soldiers are valued for their quality, not their quantity. Duan Lingtian spurred his horse to walk beside Xiao Yu and lightly smiled. He was able to discern that these soldiers were different from ordinary soldiers. Every single one of them emitted a valiant aura, and their cultivations were obviously not low. Xiao Yu, don't underestimate this 10,000-man army. Even if they were besieged by an ordinary army of a few 100,000, they would still be able to easily charge out of the encirclement. Xiao Sun's eyes focused as he slowly spoke. Could it be that this is the Crimson Wyrm army under the command of the Divine Might Marquis, Grand General Nyeyuan? Xiao Yu glanced at the group of soldiers that led them out of the city, and only now did he notice that the armor of these soldiers was inscribed with the pattern of a Crimson Wyrm. This type of armor was precisely the symbol of the Crimson Wyrm army. You only noticed now? Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled, as he'd noticed this long ago. The Crimson Wyrm army was one of the 3 elite armies under the command of the Divine Might Marquis and Grand General Swift Cavalry. These 3 elite armies only had 10,000 soldiers each. These 10,000 soldiers were generally martial artists at the 7th level of the core formation stage or above. Some of the Decurions and Centurions were even existences at the origin core stage. As for the Kiliarchs, they were all existences at the nascent soul stage. Before long, the group of Paladin Academy students, including Duan Lingtian, gathered together with the other soldiers of the Crimson Wyrm army. Right at this moment, a tall young man in silver light armor spurred his horse forward. His gaze was cold as it swept past the group of Paladin Academy students, and his tone was calm. "Hello, I'm the commander of the reinforcements heading to the northwest border battlefield this time. I'm called Nyefon. Nyefon, the son of the Divine Might Marquis, Nyeyuan, an existence like a proud son of heaven." The eyes of most of the Paladin Academy students shone when they heard Nyefon's self-introduction. He's Nyefon? As expected of the son of the Divine Might Marquis, his bearing is extraordinary. Supposedly, this Nyefon only graduated from our Paladin Academy a few months ago, and he was already a 5th-level Origin Core stage martial artist when he graduated. 26 years old, 5th level of the Origin Core stage. With such natural talent, I'm afraid only Duan Lingtian and Su Qing are able to surpass him in the younger generation of the Crimson Sky Kingdom. This time, Duan Lingtian and Su Qing have also joined the reinforcements. The 3 great geniuses of the Crimson Sky Kingdom's younger generation have gathered together. The group of Paladin Academy students whispered amongst themselves. Duan Lingtian raised an eyebrow. Su Qing was here too? Looking around, he also found Su Qing in the crowd. The current Su Qing had lost his former sharpness and had become more steady. He seemed to have changed a lot. I'll say the ugly things first. Although all of you are students of Paladin Academy, from this moment onwards, you can be considered to have joined our Crimson Wyrm army. You must obey military orders, and if you violate military orders, you will be punished according to military discipline. Now, someone will distribute the armor of the Crimson Wyrm army to all of you. Change into it as soon as possible. Nyefon's loud voice continued to sound out. After he finished speaking, he spurred his horse and left. Beside Nyefon, an old man in casual clothes sat astride his horse as well, and his eyes narrowed as he followed Nyefon like a shadow. It was as if he was Nyefon's shadow. Not many people noticed that at the instant Nyefon turned around and left, Nyefon's gaze seemed to be able to penetrate through the layers of obstructions and descend onto the violet-colored figure within the group of Paladin Academy students. Noticing Nyefon's gaze, Duan Lingtian lightly nodded to him. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian, Xiao Yu, and Xiao Sun had changed into the armor of the Crimson Wyrm army. The armor seemed to be cumbersome, but it was actually light and convenient. When worn, it didn't affect one's movements in the slightest. Moreover, it was able to play a protective role to a certain extent. The 2 of you do look quite decent when wearing this armor. Duan Lingtian glanced at Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun and lightly smiled. When the 2 of them wore the armor of the Crimson Wyrm army, they really did look quite decent. Aren't you the same? Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun looked at Duan Lingtian as well. Presently, Duan Lingtian's sword-like eyebrows were tall and straight, and his handsome face revealed a trace of coldness. After wearing the fitting armor, his entire person seemed to be awe-inspiring and had an extraordinary bearing. Duan Lingtian's eyes focused and a heartfelt smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. Even though he'd lived 2 lifetimes and had seen many grand scenes in his previous life, he still couldn't help but be slightly excited in his heart. A strong wind rises and clouds soar. A warrior leaves and never returns. Depart. Right at this moment, Nyefon, who was the commander of the Crimson Wyrm army, suddenly gave the order. His loud and clear voice was like a thunderclap that entered into the ears of everyone present. Subsequently, the army that was formed from over 10,000 people spurred the steeds beneath them to gallop out with a momentum like thunder. Everywhere they passed, the earth quaked and the mountains swayed. They set out early in the morning and stopped at noon to rest for a while before continuing on their journey. Only when the sun set in the west did the Crimson Wyrm army stop their footsteps under the command of Commander Nyefon and set up camp in the wilderness for the night. Under the illumination of the bonfire, tents rose up one by one, forming a dense mass. Duan Lingtian, Xiao Yu, and Xiao Sun were currently working together to build a small tent. This would be the residence of the three of them tonight. Suddenly, Duan Lingtian frowned, as his acute spiritual force told him that a gaze had just descended onto him. With a glance, what entered his eyes was a group of Crimson Wyrm army soldiers, and he was utterly unable to discern who was looking at him. This gaze seemed to have descended onto me this morning at the moment I changed into the Crimson Wyrm army armor. Who exactly is it? Duan Lingtian was slightly puzzled in his heart. He was sure that the owner of this gaze wasn't Nyefon, nor was it a student of Paladin Academy. Meanwhile, the tent had been built. Duan Lingtian didn't think any further and sat around the bonfire in front of the tent with Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun. Presently, the group of Crimson Wyrm army soldiers and some Paladin Academy students had all taken out their rations and were gnawing on them. Xiao Sun took out his rations as well and gave some to Xiao Yu and some to Duan Lingtian. Eating this thing isn't nutritious. Duan Lingtian didn't receive it and had a face full of disgust. Then he raised his hand and withdrew a large square block of ice from his spatial ring. Under the puzzled gazes of Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun, Duan Lingtian placed the block of ice beside the bonfire. The ice quickly melted, and the suckling pig within it revealed its true appearance. F***K. Duan Lingtian, how big is the space in your spatial ring? You actually brought this thing with you. Xiao Sun couldn't help but curse and was dumbstruck. Xiao Yu was stupefied as well. As far as they were concerned, an ordinary spatial ring only had a space of 1 cubic meter, and it simply couldn't contain more than a few of these chilled suckling pigs. Hurry up and help break it down. You're talking so much. Do you not want to eat anymore? Duan Lingtian threw the suckling pig in his hand to Xiao Sun as he glared at him. Xiao Sun received the heavy suckling pig and grinned. Of course I want to eat. If there's meat to eat, who would eat that crappy rations? Meanwhile, Duan Lingtian took out a few long iron skewers and a pile of seasonings and salt. Duan Lingtian's hand swiped past his waist, and the violet myrtle flexible sword whistled out. With the help of Xiao Sun, he quickly broke down the processed suckling pig. Duan Lingtian, you don't look like you're going to war, but instead like you're going on vacation. Xiao Yu used an iron skewer to pierce through a large piece of suckling pig and placed it on the bonfire to roast. He sprinkled salt and seasonings on it as he shook his head and laughed. It wasn't easy to come out, so I can't wrong myself. Where would I get the strength to eat those rations? Duan Lingtian rotated the iron skewer in his hand as he roasted the meat and laughed. Soon, the fragrance of the roasted suckling pig in the hands of Duan Lingtian's group of 3 pervaded the air. F***K. Where's the fragrance coming from? Isn't this fragrance from roasted suckling pig? Who's eating roasted suckling pig? It's Duan Lingtian's group. They really know how to enjoy themselves. They actually brought out suckling pig to roast. As expected of the genius disciples that the Duan clan values highly, it's so convenient to have a spatial ring. The group of Paladin Academy students all looked enviously at Duan Lingtian's group as their saliva dripped all over the ground. Compared to the group of Paladin Academy students, the group of Crimson Wyrm army soldiers were much calmer. They minded their own business as they roasted the bonfire and ate their rations. After they finished eating, they entered their tents to rest. Satisfying. Xiao Sun gnawed on the roasted suckling pig and his face revealed a satisfied smile. Duan Lingtian and Xiao Yu were also eating meat with large mouthfuls with expressions of satisfaction. It would be great if we could have some wine at this time. Xiao Sun's eyes shone. Some of the nearby Paladin Academy students were completely speechless when they heard Xiao Sun's words. A man whose heart is never content is like a snake trying to swallow an elephant. We don't even have roasted suckling pig to eat, yet you're still not satisfied and still want to drink wine? Don't be so infuriating. However, in the next moment, these Paladin Academy students were stunned once again. They saw Duan Lingtian stretch out his hand and 3 jugs of wine appeared out of thin air. Wine naturally can't be lacking when eating meat. Come, drink, Duan Lingtian said with a smile. Duan Lingtian, you really brought wine. Xiao Yu fiercely swallowed a mouthful of saliva and had a pleasantly surprised expression. Shortly after, he and Xiao Sun took the jugs of wine and started drinking in large mouthfuls. Under the attentive gazes of a pack of hungry wolves, the 3 of them ate meat and drank wine at the same time. They wolfed down the food and only stopped after a long time. So full. Soon enough, the roasted suckling pig was finished by the 3 of them, and the 3 empty jugs of wine were also thrown to the side. I'm going to relieve myself, Xiao Sun said before running into the distant forest to relieve himself. After Xiao Sun and Xiao Yu successively went to relieve themselves and returned, Duan Lingtian walked out as well. However, just as Duan Lingtian stepped into the bamboo forest, his spiritual force became vigilant. He could feel a wave of danger gradually approaching, as if it would descend at any moment. Taking a deep breath, Duan Lingtian's figure moved and directly flashed forward. Spirit Serpent movement technique, and right at this moment, a wave of scattered sounds came from behind. A robust figure flew over and surpassed Duan Lingtian in the blink of an eye, blocking Duan Lingtian's path. Chapter 204. Third level of the nascent soul stage? Duan Lingtian's eyes squinted as he gazed at the 400 ancient mammoth silhouettes above the middle-aged soldier, and the corners of his mouth slightly curled into an arc. The middle-aged soldier's gaze was icy cold, and the gaze he used to look at Duan Lingtian didn't contain the slightest emotion. The person that has been spying on me since early this morning is you? Duan Lingtian's tone was calm, as if he was talking about something that was completely unrelated to him. As expected of the #1 genius of Paladin Academy, you're actually able to notice me spying on you from the shadows. I feel that I've already been extremely careful. The middle-aged soldier was slightly surprised, as he didn't expect that Duan Lingtian had already noticed him. You're probably not a member of the Crimson Wyrm army, right? Duan Lingtian glanced deeply at the person before him. The person before him was a third-level nascent soul stage martial artist, but he only wore the armor of an ordinary soldier, and wasn't even a Decurion. He didn't believe that a person with such a cultivation would be willing to be an ordinary soldier in the Crimson Wyrm army. You're very smart. The middle-aged soldier nodded. Exactly. I'm not a member of the Crimson Wyrm army. Being able to silently sneak into the Crimson Wyrm army without anyone noticing looks like the person behind you isn't simple. I'm extremely curious. Who exactly sent you here? Duan Lingtian's gaze that seemed to be able to see through everything stared fixedly at the middle-aged soldier. A dead person doesn't need to know so much. The middle-aged soldier didn't pay attention to Duan Lingtian, and he strode out with an imposing manner that shot into the sky like a rainbow. Above him, the 400 ancient mammoth silhouettes that had just vanished not long ago once again condensed into form. You're so sure that I'll die? Duan Lingtian's gaze went slightly cold, and the corners of his mouth curled into a disdainful smile. The middle-aged soldier frowned slightly when he saw Duan Lingtian being so composed. He observed the surroundings for a moment, and after not noticing anything amiss, he sneered. Do you think you can escape by being deliberately mystifying? Don't waste your time. Once you do something, you have to bear the consequences. Today, no one can save you. The middle-aged soldier took another step out, and origin energy suffused him, intending to attack Duan Lingtian. Really? Duan Lingtian was still standing in the same place, unmoving like a mountain. His face was calm like an ancient well without any ripples. I don't think anyone can save you. At this moment, a low voice mixed with anger came from behind the middle-aged soldier. Immediately after, 2 figures appeared behind the middle-aged soldier in an instant. One of them struck out with his palm, and directly pinned the middle-aged soldier to the ground. Then, he stepped out with his foot and stomped on the middle-aged soldier, making him unable to move. The middle-aged soldier's body crashed to the ground. He subconsciously turned his head, but when he saw the scene behind him, his eyes nearly popped out of their sockets. Oh my God! What did he see? 1,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes. The person that attacked him now was actually a 7th-level nascent soul stage martial artist. How is that possible? Didn't you say that the Duan clan didn't send anyone to protect him? The middle-aged soldier felt a chill in his heart, and his eyes flashed with endless despair. Young master. Of the two people who had appeared, the one who had stepped on the middle-aged soldier was Zhang Qian. The other person was Zhao Gang. The middle-aged soldier's face went grim when he heard this familiar voice, and he struggled to turn his head around. Through the night, he finally saw the appearances of Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang clearly. General Zhang, General Zhao. The middle-aged soldier's pupils constricted, as he obviously recognized Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang were capable generals under the command of the Divine Might Marquis, the Cavalry Grand General Nie Yuan, and they had extremely high prestige in the Crimson Sky Kingdom's army. So, many officers and soldiers in the Crimson Sky Kingdom's army recognized them. You recognize us? Zhang Qian frowned, and he stepped on the middle-aged soldier's foot even harder. The middle-aged soldier's face went ghastly pale, and his eyes emitted astonishment. Who could tell him what the F***K was going on? Why are these two maleficent stars here? Moreover, they seem to be secretly protecting this Duan Lingtian. Isn't Duan Lingtian a direct descendant of the Duan clan? How could these two maleficent stars possibly lower themselves to protect him? The middle-aged soldier suddenly realized that this mission was simply a mission that would send him to his death. Speak. Who sent you to kill the young master? Zhao Gang's face sank, and his eyes flickered with dense killing intent. General Zhang, General Zhao. Isn't he a member of the Duan clan? Why? Why would the two of you? The middle-aged soldier took a deep breath. He wanted to figure out exactly what was going on right now. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang looked at Duan Lingtian at the same time when they heard this, seeming to be asking if Duan Lingtian could reveal anything. Duan Lingtian nodded. He was able to discern that this middle-aged soldier was a tough nut to crack. If he couldn't completely break down the line of defense in his heart, then the middle-aged soldier would probably rather die than speak of the person behind the scenes. Right, the young master is a member of the Duan clan. But the young master is also the nephew of the Marquis. As for us, we were sent by the Marquis to protect the young master. Zhang Qian's tone was calm as he slowly spoke. However, when these words entered the middle-aged soldier's ears, it was like needles piercing into his heart. Marquis? He naturally knew who the Marquis that Zhang Qian spoke of was. It was surely that person with an aloof status and honorable identity within the Crimson Sky Kingdom. This Duan Lingtian was the nephew of that person? Young master, spare me. This lowly one didn't know your identity. Spare me. The middle-aged soldier's face was ghastly pale, without a trace of blood, and he struggled to beg Duan Lingtian for mercy. He suddenly realized that his actions were simply bringing about his own destruction. Speak. Who sent you here? Duan Lingtian asked once more. Young master, if this lowly one speaks, are you willing to spare this lowly one's life? The middle-aged soldier's eyes flickered with a sheen of survival. You don't have the qualifications to discuss conditions with me. Duan Lingtian's voice became slightly colder. Since you know Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang, and have a cultivation at the nascent soul stage, your position in the Crimson Sky Kingdom's army ought to not be low. Could it be that you think that my Uncle Nie's ability is unable to investigate your background? The corners of the middle-aged soldier's mouth curled into a bitter smile. If the Divine Might Marquis wanted to investigate him, it would naturally be extremely easy. Young master, I'm a Chiliarch of the Imperial City's city guard. The middle-aged soldier lowered his head and spoke of his identity. He believed that there was no need for him to say the rest, as the young master before him would be able to guess it. City guard? Duan Lingtian's eyes slightly squinted. It really is him. Xuelu. What is Xuelu? Actually daring to allow a member of the city guard to sneak into the Crimson WIRM army. Doesn't he know that this is a great taboo in the army? Zhang Qian's face slightly went grim, and flames of rage jumped about within his eyes. Zhao Gang's expression was extremely unsightly as well. Generals, spare my life. The middle-aged soldier's face was ghastly pale. He only hoped to be able to survive now, and he had no other thoughts. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang looked at Duan Lingtian. Clean it up. Duan Lingtian spoke indifferently, and there wasn't the slightest fluctuation of emotion within his voice. After that, he turned around, undid his belt, and started to relieve himself. After he finished, he directly returned to his tent. As soon as Duan Lingtian finished speaking, the middle-aged soldier didn't even have the chance to react before being killed by Zhang Qian. When Duan Lingtian left, Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang had cleaned up the middle-aged soldier's corpse and concealed it once more. Duan Lingtian, why were you gone for so long? After Duan Lingtian returned to his tent, Xiao Sun asked, Can I go to the big one? Duan Lingtian rolled his eyes at Xiao Sun as he spoke angrily. Lying in his tent, Duan Lingtian's eyes narrowed, and a trace of rage arose within his heart. Although he knew that the city guard commander, Xuelu, wouldn't let the matter go, he never imagined that Xuelu would be so insane as to actually want to kill him on the way to the northwest border battlefield. Xuelu, killing intent arose within Duan Lingtian's heart. Early the next morning, the sun rose from the east. Everyone, pack up your tents. We depart in 10 minutes. Commander Nie Fan's sonorous voice broke the tranquility of the early morning, causing all the Paladin Academy students who were still dreaming within their tents to wake up with a start. They left their tents one after another and started packing up. After Duan Lingtian walked out of his tent, he noticed that the 10,000 officers and officers of the Crimson WYRM army were already fully equipped and waiting to depart. Now, only the tents of the group of Paladin Academy students remained scattered all over the place. This Crimson WYRM army is worthy of being the elite army of the Crimson Sky Kingdom, Duan Lingtian secretly praised in his heart. Before long, the group of Paladin Academy students had finished packing up their tents and were fully equipped and waiting to depart. Along with Commander Nie Fan's command, over 10,000 tall horses carried over 10,000 officers and officers as they galloped out. Everywhere they passed, the earth quaked and the mountains swayed. On the way, they encountered some merchant groups and carriages, but all of them moved aside, not daring to directly clash with the Crimson WYRM army's edge. After spending an entire 2 months of time, Duan Lingtian and the others finally arrived at their destination after following behind the Crimson WYRM army. The northwest border's Relentless Thriving City. Relentless Thriving City was a city that was located in a remote and embarrassing location. 15 kilometers away from Relentless Thriving City was the border city of the Southern Champion Kingdom, Southern Barbaric City. It was precisely because of its special location that conflicts between the two kingdoms frequently occurred here. Whenever one of the kingdoms finished recuperating and building up strength, it would take the initiative to send out troops with the intention of capturing the other's border city and plundering it. It had always been like this for thousands of years. Since half a year ago, the Southern Champion Kingdom's army had repeatedly provoked the Crimson Sky Kingdom's Relentless Thriving City, causing the pressure on the Relentless Thriving City's army to increase greatly. Only then did they request for reinforcements from the Imperial City. This Relentless Thriving City can't be considered to be large. It's about the same size as Aurora City. Duan Lingtian looked at the distant Relentless Thriving City from afar, and his brows raised. It's not a county city after all. Besides the Imperial City and county cities, the other cities are all about the same. Xiao Yu nodded. Before long, the 10,000-plus officers of the Crimson WYRM army spurred their horses into Relentless Thriving City, and at the same time, they slowed down their speed. Although Relentless Thriving City's area was no different than cities like Aurora City and Iron Blood City, only the southern half of the city was filled with stores and crowds of people. The northern half of the city was the campsite of the border army, and the northern city wall was even specially reinforced as an iron bastion against war. It's the Crimson WYRM army? The Crimson WYRM army has arrived. They'll surely make the Southern Champion Kingdom's army suffer a crushing defeat this time. Long live the divine might Marquis. Chapter 205. All along the way, Duan Lingtian could see hope and anticipation on the faces of the residents of relentless thriving city. This was their confidence towards the Crimson Wyrm army, their confidence towards the divine might Marquis. Uncle Nye is worthy of being the Crimson Sky Kingdom's god of war. In this border where battles are frequent, his prestige probably surpasses the Crimson Sky Kingdom's emperor. Duan Lingtian thought in his heart. Before long, Duan Lingtian and the other Paladin Academy students followed the 10,000 officers of the Crimson Wyrm army and entered the vast campsite at the northern side of relentless thriving city. Including Duan Lingtian's group, everyone that came was placed in various tents within the campsite. Duan Lingtian's group of 3 were placed in the same small tent. Although it was a small tent, it was still 10 times, no, 100 times better than the tents they casually set up on the road. I'm about to be able to witness that cruel war with my own 2 eyes. Just thinking about it makes me slightly excited. Xiao Sun's face was slightly red as he spoke excitedly. Although Xiao Yu didn't say anything, the flowing light in his eyes at this moment had already explained everything. Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled. With a thought in his heart, a cauldron suddenly appeared in his hand. 2 days ago, he smoothly broke through to the 8th level of the core formation stage. What he needed to do now was to refine the dragon blood pill and directly consume it to complete the tempering of his fleshly body for the 8th level of the core formation stage. Only in this way would he be able to continue charging towards the 9th level of the core formation stage. The dragon blood pill was different from ordinary medicinal pills. After the pill was formed, it had to be consumed within 10 hours. Otherwise, the medicinal strength would cease to exist. So, Duan Lingtian didn't have a backup. Duan Lingtian casually taking out a cauldron wasn't a big deal. However, Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun were stunned when they saw Duan Lingtian take out a cauldron. This, Duan Lingtian, don't tell me you've become an alchemist. Xiao Sun couldn't help but glare. Even his breathing became somewhat hurried. This Duan Lingtian couldn't be thinking of playing with his heartbeat again, right? Xiao Yu also looked at Duan Lingtian suspiciously. Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled. He raised his hand and reversed it. Qi. At this moment, a strand of milky white flame burned in the center of Duan Lingtian's palm. A 9th-grade alchemy fire. Xiao Sun's pupils constricted, and he couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. His older brother, Xiao He, was a grade 9 alchemist, so he wasn't unfamiliar with grade 9 pill fire. Xiao Yu's mouth twitched. When did this Duan Lingtian become an alchemist? Generally speaking, a genius in the martial Tao like Duan Lingtian would normally place all his efforts on the advancement of his cultivation. It was impossible for him to delve into the Tao of alchemy, Tao of weapon refinement, or the Tao of inscriptions, because once one delved into the latter, it would waste a great deal of effort and in the end, fall to mediocrity in all aspects. In the past, in his eyes, the reason why Duan Lingtian possessed such a heaven-defying cultivation was surely because he concentrated on cultivation and didn't delve into the Tao of alchemy, Tao of weapons refinement, or the Tao of inscriptions. But now, the grade 9 pill fire in Duan Lingtian's hand had given him too great of a shock. This Duan Lingtian possessed such a heaven-defying cultivation, yet he actually spent time delving into the study of alchemy and even became a grade 9 alchemist? For a moment, Xiao Yu felt his scalp go numb. Abnormal. Too abnormal. If Duan Lingtian didn't delve into the study of alchemy, then wouldn't it mean that his current strength might be even stronger? Even to the extent that it's very likely that he would be able to break through to the origin core stage at the age of 17? Xiao Yu noticed that the more he thought about it in his heart, the more shocked he was. Xiao Sun was dumbstruck as well. He had the same thoughts as Xiao Yu. After all, people that delved into the Tao of alchemy would have a much slower increase in their cultivation in the martial Tao compared to ordinary people, because they placed half of their attention on alchemy and were unable to completely concentrate on their cultivation in the martial Tao. Just like his brother, Xiao He, although their natural talent in the martial Tao was similar, even though Xiao He was older than him by a year, Xiao He's cultivation was inferior to him. All of this was because his brother concentrated on the Tao of alchemy and neglected his cultivation, causing his cultivation to increase slowly. What are you two doing? Is there a need to be like this? Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled, then directly withdrew a pile of medicinal materials required for the dragon blood pill and placed them one by one into the cauldron. Is there a need to be like this? The corners of Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun's mouth twitched, and they both felt that Duan Lingtian wasn't doing it on purpose. Abnormal. The two of them spoke at the same time with extreme tacit understanding. Duan Lingtian was speechless. Of course, it was also because Duan Lingtian didn't know what Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun were thinking. Otherwise, he would surely shake his head and laugh. Since the moment he fused with the memories of Samsara Emperor Wu, he'd inherited everything of Samsara Emperor Wu. When Samsara Emperor Wu was at his prime, he was a royal-grade alchemist and royal-grade weapons craftsman. Even in the Tao of Inscriptions, during the era where the art of inscriptions was prevalent, he'd studied it to the peak and wasn't inferior to anyone. Inheriting everything of Samsara Emperor Wu meant that Duan Lingtian also possessed the ability of Samsara Emperor Wu. Of course, if he wanted to exert even more of Samsara Emperor Wu's ability, he needed to increase his cultivation and spiritual force to a certain level, just like pill fire and weapon fire. Grade 8 flames required stepping into the first level of the origin core stage to condense. Grade 7 flames required stepping into the 7th level of the origin core stage to condense. Grade 6 flames required stepping into the first level of the nascent soul stage to condense. Grade 5 flames required stepping into the 7th level of the nascent soul stage to condense. Later on, and so on. Duan Lingtian, who'd inherited Samsara Emperor Wu's lifetime of experience in alchemy and weapons crafting, would be able to condense pill fire and weapon fire of that grade so long as his cultivation reached a certain level. There was utterly no need for him to research and improve himself. Spiritual force was the same as well. So long as his spiritual force was strong enough, he would be able to inscribe even higher level inscriptions. Just like now, Duan Lingtian's spiritual force was comparable to a nascent soul stage martial artist's spiritual force, and he was able to inscribe inscriptions like the bone corrosion inscription that were sufficient to annihilate nascent soul stage martial artists. If he was able to obtain those rare main materials, he would even be able to inscribe inscriptions that could annihilate half-step void stage experts. So long as Duan Lingtian's cultivation and spiritual force were sufficient, then he utterly didn't need to spend time studying the Tao of alchemy, weapons crafting, and inscriptions. In his mind, there were memories of studying the Tao of alchemy, weapons crafting, and inscriptions to the peak. Using an analogy, if it was said that the Tao of alchemy, weapons crafting, and inscriptions were software, Duan Lingtian's cultivation and spiritual force were the hardware. The software possessed a top-notch level, whereas the hardware was still in the stage of being explored and improved. So long as the hardware continued to improve, then he would be able to display even more of the software's functions. Voila! Duan Lingtian's hands descended, and the pill fire condensed from origin energy was pressed into the cauldron by him as he started to refine the medicine. Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun took a deep breath and suppressed the shock in their hearts as they watched without blinking. An hour later, Duan Lingtian placed the little black snake's golden blood into the cauldron and completed the final step. Whoosh! A medicinal pill that flowed with a golden light shot out and landed in Duan Lingtian's hand. It was precisely the dragon blood pill. Duan Lingtian directly consumed it. In the blink of an eye, his body underwent a tremendous change. The tempering of the body at the 8th level of the core formation stage was instantly completed. The current him could directly charge towards the 9th level of the core formation stage. Once he stepped into the 9th level of the core formation stage and consumed another dragon blood pill, he would be able to complete the final tempering of the 9 Dragons War Sovereign Technique's Raging Python form. At that time, he would be able to continue charging towards the Origin Core stage and become a true Origin Core stage martial artist, and not the current false Origin Core stage. Only when they saw Duan Lingtian put away the cauldron did Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun return to their senses. Xiao Sun asked in surprise, "Duan Lingtian, what medicinal pill did you refine earlier?" That medicinal pill seemed to flicker with a golden light, and it seemed to be extraordinary. That isn't an ordinary medicinal pill, it's a medicinal pill that matches the cultivation method I cultivate. If an ordinary martial artist were to consume it, their body would directly explode and they would die. Duan Lingtian glanced deeply at Xiao Sun. How about it? Xiao Sun, are you interested in one? Forget it, I don't want to die yet. Xiao Sun naturally believed Duan Lingtian when he heard this, and he hurriedly waved his hand in refusal. Duan Lingtian, when did you become a grade 9 alchemist? At this moment, Xiao Yu looked at Duan Lingtian with a burning gaze. Xiao Sun looked at Duan Lingtian as well. It's been a while. Duan Lingtian lightly smiled, but didn't say exactly when. Could it be that he was already a grade 9 alchemist 2 years ago? Duan Lingtian, you're absolutely the most abnormal freak I've ever seen. Xiao Sun glared. When my brother became a grade 9 alchemist at the age of 20, I already thought he was abnormal enough. I never imagined that you would become a grade 9 alchemist at the age of 18. Not only that, your cultivation has even stepped into the origin core stage. You're simply a super abnormal freak. Super abnormal? The corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth twitched. Xiao Yu nodded as well, obviously agreeing with Xiao Sun's words. Suddenly, Xiao Sun seemed to have thought of something, and his gaze abruptly shone. A few months ago, the 18-year-old genius alchemist that appeared briefly in the Alchemist Guild's headquarters and defeated my brother's spirit. Duan Lingtian's heart jerked when he saw Xiao Sun looking over. Could it be that Xiao Sun guessed it? I wonder who is more abnormal when compared to you in the Tao of Alchemy. Xiao Sun finished speaking in one breath. Duan Lingtian came to a sudden understanding. Looks like Xiao Sun didn't connect the genius alchemist from that time with him. That genius alchemist wouldn't be Duan Lingtian, right? Xiao Yu looked at Duan Lingtian, and his words caused Duan Lingtian's heart to rise to his throat. Xiao Yu was born with a keen intuition, and his intuition told him that the 18-year-old genius alchemist Xiao Sun mentioned was very likely to be the same person as Duan Lingtian. He's definitely not. Xiao Sun shook his head. You're so sure? You haven't seen him? Xiao Yu asked in bewilderment. I haven't seen him, but don't forget, my brother has. I asked my brother, and he said that youth's appearance was extremely ordinary and didn't have any outstanding points. Do you think that the youth my brother described would be Duan Lingtian? Xiao Sun looked at Duan Lingtian as he spoke. Duan Lingtian was about to transform from a youth to a young man. In terms of appearance, he could absolutely be considered to be extraordinarily handsome. Chapter 206. Could it be that he really isn't? Xiao Yu was slightly hesitant in his heart when he heard Xiao Sun's words. He was still extremely confident towards his intuition, but he couldn't wrap his head around why the genius alchemist Xiao Sun's older brother spoke of would be a youth with an ordinary appearance. How could he possibly know that Duan Lingtian's disguise technique could be said to have reached the acme of perfection? In the next few days, Duan Lingtian's group of 3 cultivated within the tent. 5 days later, all the Star Mastermind Department students, including Duan Lingtian's group of 3, were gathered within a spacious tent. At the center of the tent was something similar to a model of a building. Duan Lingtian discerned with a glance that this was the model of a city's outer perimeter. Presently, at the side of this model, Nie Fan was standing together with a middle-aged general, and behind Nie Fan was the old man that followed behind Nie Fan like a shadow. Duan Lingtian hadn't seen this old man in the divine Might Marquis estate before. But now, relying on the perception of his spiritual force and the experience of Samsara Emperor Wu, he could practically confirm. This old man was a half-step void stage expert. Looks like Uncle Nya isn't the only half-step void stage expert in the divine Might Marquis estate, Duan Lingtian thought in his heart. With a quick thought, Duan Lingtian came to an understanding. The status of the divine Might Marquis estate in the Crimson Sky Kingdom was only inferior to the imperial family. Coupled with the presence of a true void stage expert holding down the fort, there ought to be no lack of half-step void stage experts within it. Although that void stage expert wasn't what he used to be, a horse is still a horse. No one dared look down upon the divine Might Marquis estate's resources. The old man seemed to have noticed Duan Lingtian looking at him, and his muddy eyes squinted as he nodded to Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian replied with a smile. He was still extremely respectful towards the members of the divine Might Marquis estate. Before long, the 12 students of the Star Mastermind Department of Paladin Academy had all arrived. In addition, two middle-aged men dressed like scholars slowly walked in. He should be at the level of a military advisor. Duan Lingtian secretly guessed. Oomph! Suddenly, Duan Lingtian heard a cold snort. At the same time, he felt a cold gaze on him. He didn't need to turn around to know whose gaze it was. Commander Nye, these two are the strategists of our army. The middle-aged general standing beside Nye Fan introduced the two middle-aged scholars to Nye Fan. Nye Fan nodded slightly at the two middle-aged scholars. Greetings, military advisors. The two middle-aged scholars were flattered. Greetings, Commander Nye. Even though Nye Fan was young, they didn't dare underestimate him, as he was the only son of the divine might Marquis, the Grand General of Agile Cavalry, Nye Yuan, whose might shook the entire Crimson Sky Kingdom. His status was extraordinary, and it was far from something they could compare to. General He, these 12 are the elite students of the Star Mastermind Department that Paladin Academy sent out this time. Nye Fan looked at Duan Lingtian, Gu Xian, and the others as he introduced them with a smile. Oh! The middle-aged general called General He, or in other words, the general that commanded the entire border army of Relentless Thriving City, swept his gaze past Duan Lingtian and the others. When his gaze descended onto Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun, it slightly focused. In his impression, Paladin Academy's Star Mastermind Department students at this age seemed to be only first or second-year students, right? Such young students, even if they came to the battlefield, seemed to be unable to be of any help. After all, according to past practice, Paladin Academy's Star Mastermind Department students would only start to deeply research and comprehend military strategies when they reached 4th year and above. In next to no time, his expression froze. Because he saw Duan Lingtian. This person ought to be at most 18 years old, right? General, he frowned as he looked at the youth before him. Wasn't Paladin Academy taking this too lightly? Yes. When Duan Lingtian saw General He's expression, he naturally knew that General He was looking down on him because of his young age. He didn't mind. Time would prove everything. General He, don't look down on this person. He's the most renowned, peerless genius in our Crimson Sky Kingdom. Nye Fan looked at Duan Lingtian and frowned as he spoke. Oh! General He pondered for a moment when he heard this, and his gaze abruptly shone. Could it be that he's that Duan Lingtian of the Duan clan? An 18-year-old Origin Core stage martial artist? Exactly. Nye Fan lightly nodded. Excuse me. After knowing Duan Lingtian's background, General He's gaze when looking at Duan Lingtian was completely different. Even if Duan Lingtian didn't have much research in the Tao of Mastermind, Duan Lingtian's natural talent in the martial Tao was sufficient to make him admire him. Cloud Continent had always been a world where the strong were respected. As far as he was concerned, an 18-year-old Origin Core stage martial artist would surely be a great evil when he matured in the future. Greetings, General He. Duan Lingtian nodded and smiled to the middle-aged general before him. Since the general was courteous, he naturally wouldn't be disrespectful. You're General He? General He Wei-en? Right at this moment, an abrupt voice sounded out. It was Gu Xian who stood at the side that spoke. This is? He Wei-en was slightly surprised that the young man with an extraordinary bearing before him was able to call out his name. General He, I've heard my father say since long ago that you're a pillar of our Crimson Sky Kingdom. These past few years, it was all because of General He that the northwest border was able to defend against the numerous attacks of the Southern Champion Kingdom. Gu Xian lightly smiled as he spoke slowly. You really know how to flatter. Xiao Sun grunted in a low voice and spoke with a voice that was like a mosquito. Little brother, you're too kind. I don't dare accept your praise. The northwest border being able to defend these past few years was mostly because of the divine might Marquis, the Grand General of Agile Cavalry, Lord Nye Yuan. I wonder who your father is? Although He Wei-en was modest, he still had a smile on his face from the praise. Gu Yuting is my father. Gu Xian had a refined and courteous appearance. The corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth held a smile. He was able to discern. This Gu Xian intentionally flattered this General He and did so much foreshadowing for the sake of this moment. Prime Minister Gu? He Wei-en was instantly greatly shocked when he heard this. So it's the young master of the Prime Minister's family. I've truly been rude. Greetings, young Master Gu. The two middle-aged scholars that stood at the side couldn't help but be moved, and they bowed to Gu Xian together. For a time, Gu Xian became the center of attention in the entire tent. Although Gu Xian's words were modest, the arrogance and complacency on his face was something that anyone could discern. I've long since heard that young Master Gu has inherited the wisdom of the Lord Prime Minister. Since you're able to come assist our army this time, it looks like our army's plan to breach the southern barbaric city is just around the corner. He Wei laughed heartily. As for the two middle-aged scholars, they flattered one after another as well. General He and the two strategists are too kind. How can I compare to my father? Gu Xian smiled modestly, but his eyes were filled with complacency as he occasionally swept his gaze past Duan Lingtian, wanting to show off his prowess in front of Duan Lingtian. But he instead noticed with embarrassment that Duan Lingtian didn't even look at him from the beginning until the end. It was as if Duan Lingtian disdained all of this. Duan Lingtian. Gu Xian secretly gnashed his teeth in hatred, and a cold light flashed within his eyes. Duan Lingtian's brows raised when he heard what He Weian said. Breach the southern barbaric city? It looked like the arrival of the reinforcements this time had greatly increased the morale of the Crimson Sky Kingdom side, and they were preparing to turn defense into offense. Young Master Gu, everyone, please come forward and take a look at the layout of the southern barbaric city. See if there's any way to smoothly breach the southern barbaric city and spread the might of our Crimson Sky Kingdom. Meanwhile, He Weian had returned to the side of the layout of the southern barbaric city, and at the same time, he invited the group of Paladin Academy's Star Mastermind Department students to come forward. Instantly, all the Star Mastermind Department students, including Duan Lingtian, stood forward. For a time, the surroundings of the layout became crowded. There were even 3 Star Mastermind Department senior students that were unable to squeeze forward. Humph. Gu Xian coldly grunted when he saw Duan Lingtian's group of 3 arrive before the model, then said in disdain, "Those first-year students, stop seizing positions here and pretending to know when you don't, right? Don't you see that there are still 3 fifth-year students squeezed behind you?" Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun's faces went grim when they heard Gu Xian's ridicule, and they both glared angrily at Gu Xian. Duan Lingtian had only just glanced at the layout of the southern barbaric city when he heard what Gu Xian said, and he slowly raised his head to glance coldly and indifferently at Gu Xian. In this way, young Master Gu feels that we're unable to help, whereas you two are able to come up with a plan and assist the army in breaching the southern barbaric city in one go. Of course, there's no difference between having the 3 of you and not having the 3 of you. Gu Xian had a proud expression as he spoke bluntly. Young Master Gu, this place doesn't seem to be your Prime Minister's estate, right? Aren't your actions a bit trying to usurp the role of the host? Duan Lingtian said indifferently, "Humph. I'm only thinking of the overall situation. General He, what do you think? Shouldn't the 3 of them give way to the other 3 fifth-year students of our Paladin Academy's Star Mastermind Department?" Gu Xian glanced at Duan Lingtian with disdain, then looked at He Weian. He Weian looked at Duan Lingtian and hesitated for a moment before an apologetic expression appeared on his face. "Little brother Lingtian, why don't you too?" He did indeed admire Duan Lingtian's natural talent in the martial Dao, but coming up with a plan for the army and war had nothing to do with natural talent in the martial Dao. At the same time, he didn't think that these 3 first-year students of Paladin Academy's Star Mastermind Department would have any good plans. "I understand." Duan Lingtian spoke out to interrupt He Weian, then nodded and used his gaze to stop Niefan, who was about to speak, before calling out to Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun. "Xiao Yu, Xiao Sun, since this place doesn't need us, then there's no need for us to stay here. What do you two think? Let's go." Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun snorted coldly, then left the tent with Duan Lingtian. Niefan swept Gu Xian with his gaze, and a trace of coldness appeared on the corners of his mouth. This Gu Xian said Duan Lingtian was useless? Could it be that he could think of a brilliant plan like crossing the sea by deception? Chapter 207. After leaving the tent, Xiao Sun had an indignant expression. Duan Lingtian, that Gu Xian has gone too far. A trace of a bright light flashed within Duan Lingtian's eyes as he smiled. Xiao Sun, some people want to bring disgrace upon themselves. Why be angry with him? Xiao Sun and Xiao Yu were both stunned when they heard Duan Lingtian, as they didn't understand the meaning behind Duan Lingtian's words. Do you think it's so easy to take down southern barbaric city? Just wait for that Gu Xian to make a fool of himself. Humph. The corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth curled into a trace of disdain. Earlier, although he'd only glanced at the layout of southern barbaric city, he'd already understood it clearly. He knew clearly in his heart that even with the Crimson Wyrm army as reinforcements, it would still be extremely difficult to take down southern barbaric city. Not only that, southern barbaric city was a natural stronghold, and if they were unable to take it in one go, they would suffer an extremely great loss. Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun seemed to understand when they heard Duan Lingtian's words. Half a month later, the Crimson Sky Kingdom prepared to send out troops to attack southern barbaric city. As expected, Gu Xian became the strategist for this battle. Duan Lingtian, that Gu Xian is about to follow the army to command. How can you still sleep? Xiao Sun had an anxious expression when he saw Duan Lingtian lying on the bed in the middle of the day. What are you anxious about? Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled. Xiao Sun and Xiao Yu were slightly speechless towards Duan Lingtian's reaction. Only 3 days later, when the army that went to attack southern barbaric city 15 kilometers away returned, did they finally understand the meaning of Duan Lingtian's words that day. The Crimson Sky Kingdom was attacking southern Champion Kingdom. Southern barbaric city was as steady as Mount Tai, whereas the Crimson Sky Kingdom's army suffered heavy losses. Fortunately, the 10,000 Crimson Wyrm army retreated in time under the lead of Niefan, and only a portion of them suffered light injuries. Whereas the 300 General Galaxy students of Paladin Academy followed the Crimson Wyrm army and returned alive. The Border Army, however, suffered over 10,000 casualties. Duan Lingtian, you were so confident half a month ago. Could it be that you've already determined that it's impossible for Gu Xian to command the breaching of southern barbaric city? Xiao Sun was also greatly shocked when he heard this news. He looked towards Duan Lingtian and asked, It isn't so easy to breach southern barbaric city. Duan Lingtian said calmly. When he saw the layout of southern barbaric city at that time, he knew that unless he utilized the 36 stratagems of taking drastic measures to deal with the situation, sneaking around, and borrowing arrows from straw boats, otherwise, it would be impossible to break through southern barbaric city. As for these 3 stratagems of the 36 stratagems, even that Gu Xian probably wouldn't be able to think of them even in his dreams. If it were you, would you have a solution? Xiao Sun's eyes lit up as he asked, What do you think? The corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth held a smile as he replied with a question. At this moment, Xiao Sun could clearly sense the strong confidence Duan Lingtian displayed, and he knew that Duan Lingtian surely had a solution. Duan Lingtian, isn't it slightly inappropriate for you to do this? Since you had a solution, why didn't you speak of it that day? Xiao Yu, who hadn't spoken since the beginning, frowned. After all, the Border Army had lost over 10,000 people this time. Those were all living beings. Duan Lingtian shrugged. Xiao Yu, you were present at the incident last time and saw it clearly. It's fine that Gu Xian intentionally squeezed us out, but in the end, that general he actually believed what he said and asked us to leave. Do you think that at that time, even if I said I had a way to breach southern barbaric city, would that general he believe me? Would those 2 strategists believe me? So, the death of those 10,000 plus soldiers. If you want to blame someone, then you can only blame General He and Gu Xian. As Duan Lingtian finished speaking, he had a cold smile on his face. Of course, there were still some things that Duan Lingtian didn't say. Before the Crimson Sky Kingdom's army set out to battle this time, Niefan had come to look for him and told him of Gu Xian's scheme. At that time, Duan Lingtian had discerned that the scheme had 2 obvious flaws. However, an ordinary person was utterly unable to discern those 2 flaws, and even if he reminded them, others wouldn't believe him. However, so long as a critical moment arrived, those 2 flaws would surely be exposed. So, he reminded Niefan. So long as he noticed that the situation was bad, he should immediately lead the Crimson Wyrm army to retreat from the battlefield without the slightest hesitation. If it wasn't for him reminding Niefon, it would be impossible for the 10,000-plus soldiers of the Crimson Wyrm army to return in one piece. Xiaoyu pondered for a moment when he heard what Duan Lingtian said, and he knew that what Duan Lingtian said made sense. He smiled apologetically to Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian, I shouldn't have scolded you. I was too impulsive. It's fine. After all, that's over 10,000 lives. Duan Lingtian shook his head and didn't mind. That Gu Xian was so arrogant and conceited that day. Let's see if he dares to be so complacent this time. Supposedly, after they returned today, they stayed within the central tent. Gu Xian's expression is probably as unsightly as it can be right now. Xiao Sun grunted coldly, and the corners of his mouth curled into a ridiculing smile. The defeat this time can be said to be the responsibility of him alone. It's all because something went wrong with his scheme. A trace of coldness flashed within Xiao Yu's eyes. That Gu Xian has completely lost face for the Prime Minister's estate this time. Even if Prime Minister Gu knew of this, he would probably be angered to the point of spitting blood. A few words and a lousy scheme caused the death of over 10,000 officers. I'm afraid only that Gu Xian is capable of doing this. I still remember the flattering appearance of General He and the two strategists when they were in front of Gu Xian that day. They even said that Gu Xian had inherited Prime Minister Gu's wisdom. I'm really curious, what sort of expression will they have when they face Gu Xian once more? As Xiao Sun finished speaking, although he didn't have any intention of disrespecting the over 10,000 officers and soldiers that had died, he still slightly took pleasure in their misfortune. Presently, the expressions of He Wei and the two strategists under his command were naturally unsightly. 11,352 of our brothers have died. Within the spacious tent, He Wei's expression was extremely unsightly, and he had an ashamed and resentful expression as he looked at Gu Xian, who had an unsightly expression, as if he'd forgotten Gu Xian's distinguished identity. Gu Xian, shouldn't you give me an explanation? Our border army fully cooperated with your scheme, but over 10,000 of our people were cheated and killed by the Southern Champion Kingdom. Didn't you say that your scheme was foolproof? He Wei's face was crimson red, and he burst into rage. He Wei was able to possess his current status and make an army of 100,000 submit to him, and he'd relied on himself to climb step by step to get to where he was today. Normally, he was even famous for cherishing his subordinates. Once, a centurion under his command was assassinated by someone from the Southern Champion Kingdom that had infiltrated relentless thriving city. He went to the Southern Champion Kingdom by himself and infiltrated Southern Barbaric City to kill 2 of their Kiliarchs. After that incident, he was called Madman He by the people of the Southern Barbaric Kingdom. Since then, the people of the Southern Barbaric Kingdom didn't dare carry out assassinations again. He Wei, this young master has already said that it was the people of the Southern Champion Kingdom that were too cunning. Gu Xian's face sank as he repeated himself. The people of the Southern Champion Kingdom were too cunning? What excuse was this? Pooh. He Wei was angered to the point his face flushed red, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Then he pointed at Gu Xian and roared with grief and indignation. Gu Xian, if it wasn't for you being the son of the Lord Prime Minister, you've caused the death of over 10,000 of my brothers, and just this crime alone would cause you to die for sure today. This time, if it was one of his strategists that had cheated over 10,000 officers to death, he would have directly attacked and killed that strategist long ago. But Gu Xian's background was too strong. Otherwise, he would absolutely not allow Gu Xian to live for even a second longer. What? You still want to kill me? Gu Xian's face sank as he sneered. It's only 10,000 lowly lives. Do you think they can compare to this young master's noble life? Presently, various pressures descended onto Gu Xian, causing him to be on the verge of collapse and almost lose all reason. If it was the usual him, he would surely not speak such words in an occasion like this. What did you say? He Wei's face went grim as he was angered to the point of repeatedly spitting out a few mouthfuls of blood, and the killing intent on his body couldn't be suppressed any longer and was on the verge of bursting out. The eyes of Niefon, who hadn't spoken all along, went cold, and he kicked out, directly sending Gu Xian flying. He coldly shouted, "Gu Xian, you caused the death of so many brothers. Not only did you not apologize, you actually said such heartless words. Today, I'll properly teach you a lesson on behalf of Prime Minister Gu." "Niefon, you dare touch me?" Gu Xian stood up. His eyes went cold as hatred shot into the sky. Big brother Gu Xian. The two Paladin Academy's star mastermind department students that had always been by Gu Xian's side hurriedly stopped Gu Xian, and they had bitter smiles on their faces. "What? You two think it's my fault as well?" Gu Xian's face sank. "Big brother Gu Xian, what you said earlier was indeed going too far." "That's right. That's 10,000 lives." The two of them laughed bitterly. At this moment, Gu Xian took a deep breath and calmed down, realizing that he was indeed too impulsive earlier. However, it was impossible for him to apologize and admit his mistake. He was the son of the Prime Minister, a high and mighty existence. Chapter 208. When Duan Lingtian, Xiao Yu, and Xiao Sun walked out of the tent together, they were shocked as well. A dense mass of nearly 90,000 officers and soldiers knelt before the central tent with mixed feelings of grief and indignation. Waves of voices swept out and practically spread throughout the entire Relentless Thriving City, causing Relentless Thriving City to seem as if it was enveloped in a layer of haze. The residents of Relentless Thriving City were now gathered in the streets and alleys, and all of them had dejected expressions. I originally thought that since the Crimson Wyrm army had arrived, they would surely be able to cooperate with the Border Army to dampen the spirit of the Southern Champion Kingdom, but I never imagined that they would actually return in crushing defeat. This matter isn't related to the Crimson Wyrm army in the slightest. It was entirely that bullshit military advisor who blindly commanded, causing the Border Army to lose over 10,000 officers and soldiers. "How do you know?" "I have a cousin brother in the Border Army, and now he and his brothers are asking General He for orders to kill that bullshit military advisor." A military advisor caused the death of over 10,000 officers and soldiers. He deserves death. Why does he still need to ask for orders? That military advisor's identity isn't simple. He's the son of our Crimson Sky Kingdom's Prime Minister, and his name is Gu Xian. All over Shaoxing City, similar remarks were being spread everywhere. For a time, the crowd outside was in an impassioned mood. He Weiyan stood before the central tent with teary eyes as he looked at the nearly 90,000 officers and soldiers before him with a mournful expression, and for a moment, he was speechless. "General, if you're worried that Gu Xian is the son of the Prime Minister, then we can make a move ourselves. We're not afraid, right? We're not afraid." "General, even though casualties can't be avoided when marching to war, this time, if we kill over 10,000 of the Southern Champion Kingdom soldiers, then we'll admit it. But this time, over 10,000 of our brothers have died, whereas the Southern Champion Kingdom's casualties are less than 1,000. Our brothers can't die for nothing." The eyes of the group of officers and soldiers were crimson red as their imposing auras shot into the sky. Over 10,000 of our own people have died, whereas the enemy's casualties are less than 1,000. Duan Lingtian frowned. Although he expected that Gu Xian's plan wouldn't work, he never expected that it would be such a trap. He knew clearly in his heart, even if this Gu Xian was able to survive today, he would probably go down in infamy for 10,000 years. Not to mention inheriting the position of Prime Minister. Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun were also stunned. Previously, they only knew that the Crimson Sky Kingdom side had lost tens of thousands of soldiers, but they didn't know the exact losses of the other side. Now that he had heard of the other party's losses, he was momentarily speechless. More than 10,000 people died in exchange for less than 1,000 lives? Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun looked at each other and saw the anger in each other's eyes. This Gu Xian deserves to die. Xiao Sun's face sank. More than 10,000 strong men were killed by Gu Xian just like that. It was simply an act that angered both man and God. In the central tent, Gu Xian's face was pale as he sat on the ground. His legs were weak, and he couldn't stand up for a long time. He could feel the anger of the Border Army soldiers outside. He had no doubt that if he ran out at this time, he would definitely be torn to pieces. I want to leave this place. I want to leave this place. Suddenly, Gu Xian's eyes lit up, as if he had grabbed onto his last life-saving straw. Brother Gu Xian, you, go out and apologize. The two people who had been following Gu Xian hesitated for a moment before speaking slowly. Apologize? Gu Xian's face sank and his gaze went slightly cold. You want me to apologize? Impossible. Outside, no matter how He Wei tried to persuade them, the group of soldiers were unwilling to retreat. If Gu Xian doesn't die, we'll kneel and never get up. Right. If Gu Xian doesn't die, we'll kneel and never get up. The tone of the group of soldiers was resolute. In the end, He Wei really didn't know how to persuade them. He could only look at the nearby Niefan for help, wanting to see if Niefan had any ideas. Niefan nodded to He Wei and stood out. Brothers, I'm the Crimson Wyrm Army's commander, Niefan. Niefan looked at the nearly 90,000 soldiers of the border army with a sorrowful expression. I, General He, am as sorrowful as all of you towards the over 10,000 brothers that died in the war. But the dead are gone. Why are all of you still making things difficult for General He? I guarantee all of you that as long as all of you stand up now and return, we'll expel Gu Xian from relentless thriving city and make him fuck off back to the imperial city. Also, within 3 days at most, we'll send troops out again to take revenge for the over 10,000 brothers that died. Niefan's voice was resolute. Seeing the group of border army soldiers seeming to be indifferent, Niefan continued. I know that all of you are doubtful of my promise, but all of you saw yesterday's matter with your own 2 eyes. Do all of you know why I was able to notice the change in the situation in time and lead the over 10,000 brothers of the Crimson Wyrm Army to cover everyone's retreat? Niefan's words caused the gazes of the border army soldiers present to abruptly light up as they looked at Niefan. Niefan continued. Actually, this wasn't because I had foresight, but because there was a student from Paladin Academy's Star Mastermind department who reminded me before I set out. If I noticed a certain situation, I must resolutely retreat. General Nie, didn't all the students from Paladin Academy's Star Mastermind department participate in the planning of this war strategy? Since he knew beforehand that there was a flaw, why didn't he speak of it in time to avoid this disaster? A military advisor standing behind He Wei frowned and was slightly angry. He wasn't within the tent at that time, nor did he participate in the planning. Niefan looked at this military advisor with a calm gaze. Could it be? He Wei seemed to have thought of something, and his pupils constricted. He still didn't dare believe it. If it was really like that, then he couldn't absolve himself from the blame. Duan Lingtian stood in the distance when he suddenly heard Niefan's words and noticed that Niefan was looking at him. He knew that Niefan was surely planning to sell him out. Duan Lingtian shook his head and brought along the puzzled Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun as he walked over in large strides to stand by Niefan's side. It's you guys. The expressions of the 2 military advisors behind He Wei went grim and their eyes revealed disbelief. Could it be that the Star Mastermind Department student commander Nie spoke of that reminded him was these 3 Grade 1 students? The Grade 1 students that were disdained and expelled by them that day? Their expressions became slightly unsightly. This person beside me is the peerless genius that gave rise to much discussion within the Crimson Sky Kingdom recently, Duan Lingtian. Others only know that Brother Lingtian's natural talent in the martial Tao is peerless, but they don't know that he also has an extremely brilliant and unique understanding of war strategy. Before I left for the expedition, it was he who told me to be on guard against 2 situations, and that if one of them appeared, I must retreat at the first possible moment. At the beginning, I thought that he was exaggerating about those 2 situations, but only when one of them really appeared did I realize that his initial judgment was wrong. So, I made a prompt decision to lead the Crimson Wyrm Army officers to cover your retreat. Otherwise, you wouldn't have only lost over 10,000 brothers, but even 30,000, 40,000, or even 50,000. Niefan's voice was loud and extremely infectious. General Niefan, you saved us, and we're all grateful to you. But there's something I don't understand. Since this little brother is also a Star Mastermind Department student, and since he saw through the flaw in the strategy Gu Xian formulated, why do we still carry out the attack according to Gu Xian's strategy? The captain of the border army that knelt at the front asked the question that was on the minds of most people present. Duan Lingtian's brows raised as he stood out. I can tell you this. For a moment, the gazes of everyone descended onto Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian's tone was calm, as if he was narrating a matter that had nothing to do with him. That day, the two behind me and I had originally participated in the strategic planning against the southern barbaric city, but later on, Gu Xian said that we would only be in the way and be completely useless. Without us, he would still have the confidence to breach the southern barbaric city. At that time, your General He's mind was confused by Gu Xian's words, and he felt that we were young, and felt that we were only grade 1 students of Paladin Academy's Star Mastermind department, so he expelled us. Later on, although I saw through the flaw in Gu Xian's strategy, if that flaw didn't go through actual combat, it would be difficult for others to believe. Moreover, with our status at that time, even if we said it, no one would believe us. Duan Lingtian slowly spoke. I can testify to this, Niefan added. At that time, even I didn't really believe the so-called flaw that Brother Lingtian spoke of. Otherwise, I would absolutely not let my 10,000-plus brothers of the Crimson WIRM army take the risk. Duan Lingtian's words caused torrential flames of rage to accumulate within the hearts of the group of border army soldiers. Nie Fan's words were like a fuse that ignited their flames of rage, causing them to completely erupt. It's that Gu Xian again. You don't have the ability, yet you're still jealous of talent and squeezing out this brother Lingtian, who's both intelligent and courageous. For a moment, the group of border army soldiers all spoke with grief and indignation. Thump! Suddenly, the scene went deathly silent, and only the sound of kneeling could be heard. It was He Wei-an who had a flushed face as he knelt before the group of soldiers. Brothers, I didn't consider this matter thoroughly. It's all my, He Wei-an's fault. General He, why do you have to be like this? You were instigated by others. After all, with our age and experience, no normal person would believe us. Duan Lingtian lightly smiled as his voice spread out. Exactly, Brother Lingtian is right. This matter has nothing to do with the general. It has nothing to do with the general. The group of soldiers all spoke out in loud voices. He Wei-an's eyes emitted a trace of gratitude when he saw Duan Lingtian speaking up for him, and he had a face full of guilt. Duan Lingtian. Within the tent, Gu Xian gnashed his teeth with a face full of hatred. Wasn't Duan Lingtian pushing all the responsibility onto him by saying this? Although, he had to admit that it was indeed his responsibility. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian's words sounded out from outside, causing Gu Xian's gaze to light up. Chapter 209. I believe that all of you don't want anything to happen to General He as well, right? Duan Lingtian's gaze descended onto the group of soldiers before him. Instantly, the scene was deathly silent. The nearly 90,000 soldiers had now gone silent. All right, everyone, today, in front of everyone, I, Duan Lingtian, make a military pledge. 3 days from now, our side will surely breach the southern barbaric city and directly attack the enemy's stronghold to take revenge for the 10,000-plus brothers that have died. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian's voice became slightly louder, and his momentum shot into the sky like a rainbow. Duan Lingtian's words caused the eyes of the nearly 90,000 soldiers to light up. Now, they didn't dare underestimate this violet-clothed youth. This was a figure that had once seen through the flaws in the battle strategy formulated by Gu Xian. With Nie Fan as a witness, they firmly believed this without the slightest doubt. All of you stand up, properly recuperate and accumulate strength. 3 days from now, we'll attack the southern barbaric city and wash away our humiliation. Duan Lingtian's voice abruptly became louder, and it was extremely infectious. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Instantly, the nearly 90,000 border army soldiers that were kneeling on the ground stood up one after another, and all of them had excited expressions. Wash away our humiliation. Wash away our humiliation. Amidst the mighty and excited shouts, the nearly 90,000 soldiers all retreated. At this moment, No one present dared underestimate the violet-clothed youth that stood there. If he's able to continue staying in the Crimson Sky Kingdom, then he'll surely be a figure on the same level as the Divine Might Marquis in the future. No, he might even surpass the Divine Might Marquis. Hiweian was slightly moved when he saw the group of brothers under his command being persuaded to retreat by Duan Lingtian, and his eyes emitted reverence. This youth had obtained his respect. This kid, he's stolen my limelight. Nye Fan's brows raised, then he shook his head and laughed as he muttered to himself. General He, send some unrelated people away. Otherwise, I won't have the mood to discuss strategy with all of you. Duan Lingtian's gaze descended onto Hiweian, and it seemed as if he was referring to something. Brother Lingtian, don't worry. Hiweian nodded and returned to the tent. He looked at Gu Xian and said, Young Master Gu, I'll arrange a horse for you immediately. Please leave. Then why aren't you making the arrangements? Gu Xian glared. He didn't want to stay in this place for a moment longer. Right now, he only wanted to return to the Imperial City and live his life as a young master. Duan Lingtian, you're really something. Xiao Sun looked at Duan Lingtian and laughed. You didn't see the faces of General He and those two strategists just now. It was as marvelous as marvelous. However, you didn't tell us that you also reminded Commander Nye of the flaws in Gu Xian's strategy. Don't you know now? Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled. Xiao Yu looked at Duan Lingtian and didn't know what to say for a long time. In the end, he could only spit out two words, pervert. Soon, Gu Xian appeared in front of Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian's eyes slightly narrowed. Gu Xian coldly swept Duan Lingtian with his gaze and sneered, Duan Lingtian, don't think I'll be grateful to you. Also, don't be complacent. You're just a grade 1 student of the Star Mastermind Department. Why don't you take a piss and look at yourself? You think you can think of a way to breach Southern Barbaric City? Before Duan Lingtian could speak, Xiao Sun couldn't watch any longer and ridiculed. Although he'd seen Duan Lingtian's stratagem of crossing the sea by deception, he never imagined that Duan Lingtian would be able to think of so many brilliant stratagems. Moreover, the 3 brilliant stratagems that Duan Lingtian spoke of now were even more closely linked, including Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun. All the Star Mastermind Department students looked at the violet-clothed youth before them in disbelief. They even wished for nothing more than to break open the youth's head and see what was actually inside. Even the 2 people who were originally by Gu Xian's side and had always been hostile towards Duan Lingtian could see admiration in each other's eyes when they glanced at each other. The stratagem that we formulated today is only a rough idea. Once we're on the battlefield, we'll have to improvise according to the situation. Duan Lingtian wasn't surprised when he saw the shock on everyone's faces. The 36 stratagems were the treasures that were passed down from the ancient ancestors of China on Earth in his previous life. If used properly, one would be invincible in battle. I believe that with Brother Lingtian commanding us, we'll surely be able to obtain a great victory. A smile appeared on Hiweian's face as well, and his eyes seemed to be slightly excited, because he could finally take revenge for the 10,000-plus brothers that had died under his command. Then we'll depart 3 days later. Our Crimson WYRM army will be in charge of the assault, and your border army will be in charge of the frontal assault. Nye Fan nodded as well and made the decision. In next to no time, everyone dispersed one after another. 3 days later, they'd set out for Southern Barbaric City and wash away their previous disgrace. Xiao Sun looked at Duan Lingtian when he'd just returned to the tent and asked, Duan Lingtian, what the heck is in your head? Taking drastic measures to deal with the situation, sneaking around, borrowing money with straw boats. I've never heard of these stratagems before. How did you think of them? Also, when Gu Xian left, what did you mean when you said that might not be the case? Duan Lingtian shrugged. Xiao Sun, how do you want me to answer you with so many questions? I can't be bothered with you. When the time comes, you'll naturally know. Xiao Sun laughed bitterly. Xiao Yu, however, seemed to have long since known that this would be the outcome, so he didn't ask a single word. Even so, the gaze he looked at Duan Lingtian with was extremely complicated. Perhaps, being able to become friends with Duan Lingtian in this lifetime could be considered as his greatest gain and honor. Outside relentless thriving city, a fine horse galloped out. A young man in a slightly sorry state ceaselessly clamped his legs onto the horse's belly, and the horsewhip in his hand didn't stop, ceaselessly spurring the horse beneath him to speed up without end. After galloping for a few kilometers, the young man noticed that the speed of the horse beneath him had slowed down. In next to no time, the horse directly fell down, foaming at the mouth and not making a sound. Obviously, it had been poisoned to death. The young man's face went grim as he faintly realized that there was something strange about this matter. Right at this moment, "Giddy up! Giddy up!" 10 tall horses galloped over, and in the blink of an eye, they surrounded the young man in the center. On the 10 horses were 10 middle-aged men in casual clothes, and they were currently staring at the young man with cold and indifferent expressions. Their eyes flickered with bloodthirsty killing intent. "You all, I know you. You're a captain of the border army, and you're a captain as well." The young man felt that these people were familiar at the beginning, and in next to no time, he recalled them. These people had respectfully obeyed his orders on the battlefield yesterday and led the army to attack southern barbaric city. "Young Master Gu, when you're on the road to hell, remember to apologize to our 10,000-plus brothers." One of the captains that was recognized shot an icy cold gaze at the young man, as if he was looking at a dead man. "You all, how audacious of you. I'm the son of the Prime Minister. You all dare touch me?" The young man was precisely Gu Xian. Gu Xian never imagined that after escaping relentless thriving city, he would actually encounter the border army's pursuit, and his expression was incomparably unsightly. "The son of the Prime Minister?" Another captain sneered. "If it wasn't for you being the son of the Prime Minister, do you think you'd be able to walk out of our campsite? If it wasn't for us being worried that the general would be implicated, do you think we would be so kind as to let you leave? That's over 10,000 lives." As he finished speaking, this captain was slightly hysterical. You all can't kill me. You can't kill me. So long as you don't kill me, I'll give you anything you want. Glory, splendor, wealth, a group of beauties. I can give you anything you want." Gu Xian was afraid. He was truly afraid. Chapter 210. Do you think that the lives of over 10,000 of our brothers can be measured by other things? Another captain spoke out with a cold and indifferent voice, and his body even emitted dense killing intent. "If something happens to me, aren't you afraid my father will look for trouble with your border army?" Gu Xian's face sank when he saw the 10 captains remaining indifferent. Since the soft approach didn't work, he used the hard approach. Instantly, all the captains looked at each other, and in the end, they couldn't refrain from laughing. "Young Master Gu, everyone knows that our general has already let you go, and you've left relentless thriving city. Do you think that even if you died outside, this matter would implicate our general? Others would only think that you encountered bandits on the way and were robbed of your wealth and life. So, young Master Gu, you don't have to worry about our general." The captains mocked him all at once, causing Gu Xian's face to become more and more unsightly. He naturally knew that what these people said was true. Now, he regretted it. He shouldn't have left the border army's campsite. Even if he was shameless, he should have stayed at the border army's campsite and waited for the Crimson WIRM army to return with him. At the very least, he would be able to keep his life like this. "No, don't kill me." Gu Xian's face went ghastly pale, and his eyes emitted deep terror. But unfortunately, no matter how he begged for mercy, under the hands of the 10 extremely furious captains, he was unable to escape death in the end, even if he was a third-level origin core stage martial artist. But before these 10 captains of the border army that were like wolves and tigers, he was still unable to withstand a single blow. Gu Xian was killed as expected, and his corpse was buried in the wilderness. Perhaps it would never be discovered by anyone. They're rather nimble. Deep into the night, relentless thriving city, at an inconspicuous corner of the border army's campsite, Duan Lingtian lightly smiled. Presently, there were 2 other people standing before Duan Lingtian. Zhang Qian, Zhao Gang. Duan Lingtian had just found out about the matter of Gu Xian being killed from Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang. Perhaps, Even those 10 captains of the border army never imagined that everything they did was seen by Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang. That Gu Xian's death isn't worth regretting. When Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang mentioned Gu Xian, they were extremely angry. They were all high-ranking officers in the army, and they were also furious at the fact that Gu Xian had killed tens of thousands of border soldiers. All right, it's all in the past. Just wait for the show in 3 days. A confident expression appeared on Duan Tian's face. 3 days later, Shaoxing City once again dispatched troops towards the direction of the southern dynasty kingdom to attack the southern barbarian city that was 15 kilometers away. Infantry made up more than half of the border army, so the Crimson Wirm army and the border army combined to form an army of 100,000 still required an entire day's time to head to southern barbaric city. Duan Tian spurred his horse forward and walked at the front with Nie Fan and He Weian. They set out early in the morning, and as the sun set in the west, the 100,000-strong army arrived outside a mountain range. The Hongduan Mountains in the distance attracted Duan Lingtian's attention. The Hongduan mountain range seemed to have been forcefully split open by an almighty with unparalleled strength. Brother Lingtian will arrive at southern barbaric city after crossing this Hongduan mountain range. We'll be resting on the other side of the Hongduan mountain range tonight, He Weian reminded. Duan Lingtian nodded, but his gaze never left the Hongduan mountain range. What? Brother Lingtian is interested in this Hongduan mountain range? He Weian asked with a smile. I feel that the ravine in the middle of this mountain range doesn't seem to be naturally formed. Duan Lingtian lightly smiled. Brother Lingtian, there's a legend in our northwest border. According to the legend, a very, very long time ago, 2 experts had once descended here and started a great battle that shook the heavens and the earth. In the end, one of the experts made a move and slashed this mountain range apart with a single strike of his saber, whereas the ravine in the middle of the Hongduan mountain range, which is this path, was precisely slashed open by that expert with a single strike of his saber. He Weian slowly spoke. Duan Lingtian nodded. This legend was most likely true. Moreover, the strength of that expert wasn't weak. Who knows how many years have passed since that expert made a move? That expert has probably already transformed into a pile of dirt. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. In Cloud Continent, even if someone as strong as Emperor Wu had a long lifespan, there would still be an end to it. After passing through the ravine in the middle of the mountain range, the army of 100,000 arrived at the other side of the Hongduan mountain range. Presently, the sky had already gradually darkened. The army of 100,000 set up numerous tents on the spot. Night descended. Duan Lingtian, sleep early. We still have to attack the southern barbaric city tomorrow morning. Xiao Sun informed Duan Lingtian before returning to his tent and lying down to rest. Xiao Yu followed in as well. They were slightly anticipating the battle to attack the city tomorrow in their hearts. Duan Lingtian, however, wasn't sleepy. Their tent was close to the side of the Hongduan mountain range. Presently, Duan Lingtian's gaze descended onto a nearby enormous rock. There was a pool of liquid on the enormous rock. The liquid was crimson in color, and this was a pure color. Duan Lingtian walked over, dipped a trace of the liquid, and brought it close to his nose to smell it. It's wine. Instantly, Duan Lingtian noticed that when the smell of wine entered his nose, it actually caused the origin energy in his body to become turbulent. This isn't an ordinary wine. Duan Lingtian's pupils constricted, and he started searching for related records in the lifetime memories of Samsara Emperor Wu. Within Cloud Continent, there weren't many wines that had an effect on origin energy, especially a wine that appeared in a remote mountain forest like this. In the end, Duan Lingtian locked onto one of the wines. Monkey wine. Monkey wine was usually brewed from the ferocious beast, stone monkey, and was brewed by the stone monkey by gathering treasures of heaven and earth. When consumed by martial artists below the void-prying stage, it was greatly helpful to their cultivation. Normally, this wine would only appear in places where stone monkeys appeared. Even if it was Samsara Emperor Wu who'd experienced 2 lifetimes, he'd only encountered stone monkeys in 5 places and seized monkey wine. Moreover, his cultivation was already at the void-prying stage at that time. and seizing the monkey wine from the stone monkeys was only for the sake of tasting the strength of the monkey wine. Looks like it's very likely that stone monkeys exist within this Hungduan mountain range. Duan Lingtian's eyes lit up as he silently flashed out and searched all along the way, and he noticed some scattered traces of monkey wine. According to his guess, there ought to be stone monkeys that came here to drink monkey wine. Before long, Duan Lingtian arrived at the foot of a mountain at the side of the Hungduan mountain range. Presently, Duan Lingtian was already extremely far away from the place where the army of 100,000 was garrisoned. Young master. Two figures silently appeared by Duan Lingtian's side. They were slightly curious. What did the young master come here for in the middle of the night? Could it be that he wants to enter the Hungduan mountain range? Zhang Qian, Zhao Gang, how much do the two of you know about this place? Duan Lingtian asked Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang. Zhang Qian pondered for a moment, then said, Young master, according to what we know, there are groups of wild beasts within this Hungduan mountain range, and there are many fierce beasts as well. It's even to the extent that there might be nascent soul stage fierce beasts within. As expected, Duan Lingtian nodded, and his eyes lit up. Looks like his guess wasn't wrong. There were surely many stone monkeys within this Hungduan mountain range, and there might even be groups of monkeys. My luck isn't bad. The corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth curled into a smile. The monkey wine was extremely beneficial to him now. If he was able to obtain the monkey wine, he was confident that he would directly break through to the 9th level of the core formation stage. Even if he broke through to the origin core stage, it wouldn't take too long. Zhang Qian, Zhao Gang, come with me. As soon as Duan Lingtian finished speaking, he moved as if transforming into an incomparably swift spirit serpent that directly flashed up the Hungduan mountain range. Although Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang didn't know why Duan Lingtian would be interested in the Hungduan mountain range, they still followed him. Their duty was to protect Duan Lingtian's safety. After entering the Hungduan mountain range, they naturally encountered many wild beasts and fierce beasts. All of them were easily killed by Duan Lingtian's group of 3. As they continued deeper, they couldn't see any wild beasts anymore. All that pounced at them were fierce beasts, and even with Duan Lingtian's current strength, he still felt pressured. However, with Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang present, their forward speed didn't slow down. Finally, within a spacious gorge, Duan Lingtian noticed traces of stone monkeys. Stone monkeys were different from ordinary apes. Their bodies were extremely small, yet their speed was like lightning. The weakest adult stone monkey had a strength at the origin core stage. Some of the stronger ones were even comparable to nascent soul stage martial artists. That year, Samsara Emperor Wu encountered several groups of stone monkeys, and there were 2 groups of monkey kings that had stepped into the void-prying stage and had already transformed into demon beasts. I shouldn't be so unlucky, right? Duan Lingtian thought to himself. Presently, Duan Lingtian was hiding on a large tree outside the only exit of the gorge. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang followed by Duan Lingtian's side. At this moment, the 2 of them noticed the location of the stone monkeys, and they had puzzled expressions. Young master, what kind of monkey is this? Why do I feel that its size is even smaller than ordinary monkeys? Stone monkey, Duan Lingtian said. What? Stone monkey? Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang's pupils constricted when they heard Duan Lingtian. Although they'd never seen a stone monkey, they'd heard many rumors about it. Stone monkeys were a type of formidable fierce beast. Most importantly, they knew how to brew a type of spirit wine called monkey wine. This type of spirit wine, when consumed by martial artists below the void-prying stage, was extremely beneficial to their cultivation. The lower the cultivation, the more beneficial it was. For example, if a core formation stage martial artist drank the monkey wine, it was very possible for them to directly break through 1 or 2 levels. I never expected that stone monkeys would actually exist in this Hungduan mountain range. Moreover, it's hidden so well. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang's eyes shone as they thought about the monkey wine. Don't be careless. According to my current observation, there's a group of stone monkeys in this gorge. There might even be a monkey king among them. Duan Lingtian's expression was heavy, and he wasn't as optimistic as Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang. Monkey king? Obviously, Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang didn't know much about stone monkeys. A monkey king might be a fierce beast, but it might also be a demon beast. Even if it's a fierce beast, it's absolutely in existence at the half-step void stage. Chapter 211. Demon Beast? Half-step void stage? Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang's pupils constricted, and they had astonished expressions when they heard this. A demonic beast was undoubtedly equivalent to a true emptiness stage expert. Not to mention a demon beast monkey king. Even a half-step void stage monkey king wasn't in existence they could go against. Young master, then we'll. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang looked at Duan Lingtian and were slightly hesitant. Although the monkey wine was good, it was far from being as important as their lives. Act according to the circumstances. Duan Lingtian brought Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang along as they lightly flashed through the trees, and everything within the gorge entered their eyes. They could see those stone monkeys standing in groups of 3 to 5 everywhere. Young master, is that monkey wine? Duan Lingtian looked towards the direction Zhang Qian pointed at. There was a small pond there, and the pond was half filled with liquid. The liquid was crimson red, and it was exactly the same color as the monkey wine in the memories of Samsara Emperor Wu. Right, that's monkey wine. Duan Lingtian nodded. We have to think of a way to steal some monkey wine now. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang nodded, as they were extremely interested in the monkey wine as well. How about this? The two of you draw away the surrounding stone monkeys. I'll seize the opportunity to collect the monkey wine. How about it? Duan Lingtian looked at Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang, and when he noticed they were slightly hesitant, he instantly scolded with a smile. Do you think I'll harm the two of you? Even the strongest of these stone monkeys is inferior to the two of you. So long as you draw them away at the first possible moment, I can collect the monkey wine. Young master, you can discern their strength? Zhang Qian stared with a face full of astonishment, as he suddenly noticed that this young master was truly omnipotent. The strength of a stone monkey can be determined based on the color of their fur. Look, those 3 stone monkeys have dark yellow fur, and they're minors. Their strength is only at the origin core stage, and they're the youngest amongst these stone monkeys. Those with slightly yellow fur are all adult stone monkeys, and the strongest is at most at the 6th level of the nascent soul stage. As for the stone monkeys at the 7th level of the nascent soul stage or above, their fur is slightly closer to dark gold. However, there are no such stone monkeys here. My guess is that the stronger stone monkeys should be in the monkey cave. Duan Lingtian looked at the stone monkeys in the gorge as if he was familiar with them. Young master, you even know this? Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang were both astonished. They immediately asked, where is the monkey cave? Behind the forest over there? Do you see it? Duan Lingtian pointed to the side of the mountain in the distance. There was a cave shrouded in the forest. If one didn't look carefully, they wouldn't have noticed it. Young master, we'll be off then. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang looked at each other, took a deep breath, and said to Duan Lingtian, go. Remember, don't hurt them, or the consequences will be unimaginable. Duan Lingtian nodded, but he was a little nervous. Let's take a gamble. He hoped that there was no monkey king here. Even if there was a monkey king, he hoped that it was not a demon beast. If it was a demonic beast, I wouldn't be able to escape even if I took the monkey wine. Riches and honor were found in danger. Duan Lingtian was taking a gamble now. Samsara Emperor Wu had encountered groups of stone monkeys many times, but only twice had he encountered a demon beast monkey king. He didn't believe that his luck was really so good. Whoosh, whoosh. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang responded. Their figures flashed and appeared before a group of stone monkeys, startling all the stone monkeys in the canyon. The stone monkeys in groups of 3 to 5 obviously didn't expect that humans would appear, and after being stunned for a moment, they pounced towards Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang. Even the few stone monkeys that were guarding the pond that contained the monkey wine now chased towards Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang. Now is the time. Duan Lingtian's eyes lit up when he saw the group of stone monkeys within the canyon chasing Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang out of the canyon. Spirit Serpent Movement Technique. Duan Lingtian's strength exploded out, and 21 ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form above him. At that time, Before he broke through to the 8th level of the core formation stage, Duan Lingtian already had the strength of 19 ancient mammoths. Half a month ago, he broke through to the 8th level of the core formation stage and consumed the dragon blood pill to complete the tempering of his fleshly body. So he had the strength of another 2 ancient mammoths. His current strength was even slightly superior to a first-level origin core stage martial artist. Duan Lingtian's eyes shone when he saw the pond that contained the monkey wine coming closer and closer. Now, the medicinal cauldron appeared in his hand. This was also the only container in his hand. Bang! Duan Lingtian's body descended onto the ground, and he descended beside the small pond. However, right when Duan Lingtian intended to use the medicinal cauldron to collect the monkey wine, an awe-inspiring strong wind swept out and instantly arrived behind him. Duan Lingtian's body froze. I can't be so unlucky, right? The golden figure that flashed by earlier caused traces of coldness to involuntarily arise within Duan Lingtian's heart. When Duan Lingtian turned around, only through the bright moonlight did he notice that a stone monkey that was completely covered in golden fur had appeared before his eyes. This stone monkey was a few times larger than an ordinary stone monkey and was only slightly shorter than Duan Lingtian. Presently, its pair of golden eyes were staring at Duan Lingtian, and it revealed traces of hostility. Demon Beast Monkey King. Duan Lingtian's body was slightly stiff. He never imagined that he would really be so unlucky, meeting a Demon Beast Monkey King on his first encounter with a stone monkey. The Demon Beast Monkey King was in existence at the void prying stage. Moreover, Duan Lingtian could discern from the characteristics of the Monkey King before him that this Monkey King wasn't in existence that had just transformed into a demon beast. Its strength was at least at the 4th level of the void prying stage or above. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Right at this moment, another group of stone monkeys flashed out from the monkey cave and surrounded Duan Lingtian in the center. Amongst these stone monkeys, there were many existences with dark gold fur. These stone monkeys were all existences at the 7th level of the nascent soul stage or above. A trace of a bitter smile appeared on the corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth. Some things really couldn't be casually gambled. The group of stone monkeys surrounded Duan Lingtian, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws, and were extremely ferocious. It seemed as if so long as the Monkey King gave the order, they would pounce over and tear Duan Lingtian into pieces. Duan Lingtian took a deep breath and recovered his senses. He realized that if he wanted to survive, he could only put in more effort on the Monkey King before him. Demon beasts had already begun to possess human nature and were able to understand human speech. Respected Monkey King, I have no ill intentions. Duan Lingtian looked at the golden-haired Monkey King that stared coldly at him and tried to communicate with it. Roar! The golden-haired Monkey King roared in a low voice and pointed at the monkey wine in the nearby pool, as if it was angrily denouncing Duan Lingtian as a thief. This, Monkey King, I only want to ask for some wine to drink. I have no ill intentions. I didn't harm a single one of your people. Duan Lingtian gestured as he explained. He felt a wave of bitterness in his heart. When had he ever spoken so humbly? And it was even towards a monkey. However, when one was under the eaves, one had no choice but to lower one's head. If he wanted to survive, then he had to have a deep communication with the Monkey King and obtain its forgiveness. Roar, roar, the Monkey King roared twice more, and its icy cold eyes eased up slightly as it pointed towards outside the gorge. You want me to leave? Duan Lingtian's eyes lit up, as he never imagined that the Stone Monkey King would be so easy to talk to. Can you give me some monkey wine? Realizing that he had escaped danger, Duan Lingtian couldn't help but seize the opportunity, and he pointed at the nearby pool as he probingly asked the Monkey King. Roar, roar. Unexpectedly, the originally docile Monkey King immediately glared at him with its golden eyes, and its body was filled with a dense, murderous aura. All right, I'll leave now. Duan Lingtian hurriedly waved his hand and put away the medicinal cauldron in his hand. Under the escort of the stone monkeys, he walked out of the gorge step by step. He thought to himself, in the future, when this young master's strength surpasses yours, I'll teach you a good lesson. Just as Duan Lingtian arrived at the exit of the gorge, roar, a mournful roar of a stone monkey was transmitted over. Not good. Duan Lingtian's expression changed. His first thought was, could it be that Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang didn't listen to him and hurt those stone monkeys? If that was the case, he would really be doomed by Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang this time. Just as Duan Lingtian's expression changed, the Monkey King also let out a furious roar. A group of stone monkeys once again surrounded Duan Lingtian, forcing him back. Duan Lingtian laughed bitterly, and his heart was filled with trepidation. He only hoped that it wasn't Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang that touched those stone monkeys. Swoosh! Right at this moment, a stone monkey that was twice the size of an ordinary stone monkey with fur between dark gold and gold entered the gorge. Crimson-red blood was still ceaselessly dripping from the claws of this stone monkey. On its back was a stone monkey with dark gold fur. This stone monkey lay on the former's body with its arms hanging down, and its claws flickered with a sheen that was pitch black like ink. Obviously, it had been poisoned. Half-step void stage. Duan Lingtian looked at the stone monkey that carried the poisoned stone monkey in, and his pupils constricted as a trace of a bitter smile appeared on his face. This group of stone monkeys seemed to be even more terrifying than he'd imagined. Besides the demon beast Great Monkey King, there was also a half-step void stage Second Monkey King. Woo-woo, the Second Monkey King put down the poisoned stone monkey on its back before flashing out of the gorge. When it entered once more, it was carrying a jet-black enormous python on its shoulder. The enormous python had already been killed, and there were many marks of being bitten and clawed on the enormous python's body. This enormous python ought to be the spoils of war of the Second Monkey King. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. Duan Lingtian quickly recognized this enormous python after he searched the memories of Samsara Emperor Wu. This was a dark cloud python. Looking at the markings on the dark cloud python's body, Duan Lingtian estimated that its strength ought to be at the 9th level of the nascent soul stage. Now, he'd roughly guessed the sequence of events. It ought to be the dark cloud python that injured the poisoned stone monkey, and the stone monkey was poisoned by the dark cloud python. Later on, the dark cloud python died at the hands of the Second Monkey King. The dark cloud python's poison, Duan Lingtian's eyes lit up, seeming to have thought of something happy. Now, Duan Lingtian was able to discern that the poisoned stone monkey hadn't died, and was only bitten and poisoned. Of course, if it wasn't detoxified in time, this stone monkey wouldn't be able to live for more than an hour. Woo-woo, right at this moment, the group of stone monkeys swarmed over and dismembered the corpse of the dark cloud python into 1,000 pieces. Chapter 212. Duan Lingtian could tell that this group of stone monkeys was taking revenge for their tribesmen. Very soon, not a single piece of the black cloud python's corpse could be seen. Inner core. Very soon, Duan Lingtian saw the inner core of the black cloud python. The Second Monkey King directly grabbed the inner core, stuffed it into its mouth, and swallowed it. Its dark golden eyes revealed a vicious expression. And now, after the group of stone monkeys tore apart the black cloud python's corpse, their eyes turned red. When they looked at Duan Lingtian again, the killing intent in their eyes didn't seem to dissipate. Duan Lingtian smiled bitterly. These stone monkeys wouldn't directly pounce on him and tear him into pieces, right? Whoosh, 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 whoosh. And at this moment, the group of stone monkeys that had been lured away by Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang also returned. They looked at the big Monkey King and shook their small heads while gesturing with their monkey claws. Occasionally, they would point at Duan Lingtian. Although Duan Lingtian couldn't understand what they were gesturing, he could guess that these stone monkeys should be reporting to the big Monkey King about Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang. As expected, roar, the big Monkey King looked at Duan Lingtian. Its roar was mixed with anger, as though it was saying that Duan Lingtian had lied to it. Monkey King, don't be agitated. My two friends don't have any evil intentions. Since your tribesmen couldn't catch up to them, it means that their strength is inferior to theirs. If we had any evil intentions, we would have definitely acted against your tribesmen. Duan Lingtian gestured with his hands as he spoke to the big Monkey King. Roar, just when Duan Lingtian saw that the big Monkey King's emotions had calmed down and couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief, the second Monkey King suddenly jumped out. Its dark golden eyes emitted a cold light as it stared at Duan Lingtian. Next, it gestured to the big Monkey King. The big Monkey King nodded. Its gaze toward Duan Lingtian also became colder. Not good. Duan Lingtian's heart skipped a beat. He discovered that the two Monkey Kings were brimming with killing intent as they pounced on him. I can save it. When the two Monkey Kings rushed over, Duan Lingtian quickly used his trump card and pointed at the poisoned stone monkey. Roar! The big Monkey King roared and appeared in front of Duan Lingtian in the blink of an eye, blocking the attack of the two Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian could feel that his clothes were completely soaked with sweat. Just now, he was so close to death. Roar, roar! The great Monkey King roared twice at Duan Lingtian. Its cold golden eyes flashed with a hint of doubt. You don't need to doubt me. I'm an alchemist. Do you understand? Duan Lingtian took out the medicine cauldron from his storage ring and waved it in front of the big Monkey King. Originally, Duan Lingtian didn't expect the Monkey King to understand. Unexpectedly, the big Monkey King hesitated for a moment before lightly nodding. Then it's fine. All right, ask your people to leave. I'm going to refine medicinal pills for your injured people. Duan Lingtian nodded. Then he glanced at the group of stone monkeys that surrounded him before speaking to the big Monkey King. Roar, roar! The big Monkey King roared twice in a low voice, and this time, it was directed at the group of stone monkeys. For a moment, the group of stone monkeys seemed to know from the big Monkey King that Duan Lingtian could save their clansmen, and they hurriedly left. Their crimson-red eyes calmed down. Duan Lingtian heaved a sigh of relief. Under the gazes of the group of stone monkeys, Duan Lingtian started to refine the pill. If news of what happened today were to spread out, then I'd absolutely be the first alchemist to do so. Making a 4th-level Void Prying Stage Demon Beast Monkey King, a half-step Void Stage Demon Beast Monkey King, and a group of stone monkeys watch me refine pills. Besides me, who would dare do this? At this moment, a trace of complacency actually arose within Duan Lingtian's heart. It seemed as if he'd already completely forgotten that he was refining pills before so many stone monkeys only for the sake of survival. Fortunately, the dark cloud python is only a fierce beast, and its poison is nothing. A grade 9 spirit cleansing pill is able to completely eradicate it. Duan Lingtian thought in his heart, and he withdrew a pile of medicinal materials from his spatial ring. At that time, when Duan Lingtian refined the grade 9 spirit cleansing pill for the Divine Might Marquis Estate's senior marquis, he still had half of the medicinal materials left, but he never imagined that he would use them here. Looks like I have to prepare more medicinal materials for the spirit cleansing pill in the future, as it can save my life at a critical moment. Duan Lingtian could imagine that if it wasn't for him just happening to have the medicinal materials to refine the grade 9 spirit cleansing pill in his possession today, his end would surely be the same as the Dark Cloud Python. Duan Lingtian leisurely refined the grade 9 spirit cleansing pill here, whereas Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang instead hid outside the gorge with anxious expressions. Why hasn't the young master come out yet? Let's wait a while longer. The young master doesn't seem like a short-lived person. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang could only silently wait in torment. 2 hours later. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. 3 grade 9 spirit cleansing pills flew out from within the cauldron and were received by Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian walked towards the poisoned stone monkey. The stone monkey's body was cold now, and its face was jet black, as if it was covered in a layer of gloomy clouds. Duan Lingtian helped the stone monkey open its mouth and fed it a grade 9 spirit cleansing pill. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian placed his hand on the stone monkey's back, intending to use his origin energy to dissolve the medicinal strength of the spirit cleansing pill for the stone monkey. Roar! When the second Monkey King saw this scene, its dark golden eyes went cold and its body swayed, seeming to want to make a move against Duan Lingtian. Roar! The big Monkey King stopped the second Monkey King in time, as it obviously saw that Duan Lingtian didn't have any ill intentions towards the stone monkey. Seeing that the stone monkey's complexion had recovered, and the poison that had spread to its paws had been removed, Duan Lingtian heaved a sigh of relief. Success. Woo woo. At this moment, the stone monkey that had been cured of the poison with the help of Duan Lingtian woke up. It looked at Duan Lingtian, and its dark golden eyes flickered with a gentle luster. It's fine now. Duan Lingtian smiled at the stone monkey and helped it up, including the second Monkey King. All the stone monkeys let out excited roars when they saw that their clansmen had recovered. These roars were also heard by Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang, who were hiding outside the gorge. Zhang Qian. The roars of these stone monkeys seemed to be very excited. Zhang Qian looked at Zhao Gang with a puzzled expression. Why are you looking at me? I don't know. Zhao Gang rolled his eyes at Zhang Qian, then said worriedly, I wonder how the young master is now. Don't worry, the young master will surely be blessed by the heavens. Although Zhang Qian said this, he still had a worried expression on his face. Within the gorge, Duan Lingtian had cured the poison of that stone monkey. Other than dispelling the hostility of the other stone monkeys towards him, he had also removed the poison. The big Monkey King also stretched out its paw and pointed at the small pond that contained the monkey wine not far away. It was obviously telling Duan Lingtian that if he wanted the wine, he could go and get it. Duan Lingtian smiled. This big Monkey King was quite tactful. Just as Duan Lingtian was about to use the cauldron to collect the monkey wine, Woo Woo, that stone monkey that had been poisoned earlier, roared twice at Duan Lingtian, then transformed into a dark golden shadow and rushed into the monkey cave. When it came out again, it took out a gourd and passed it to Duan Lingtian, nodding its head like a human. Thanks. Duan Lingtian took the gourd and smiled at the stone monkey. However, he couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Just a moment ago, he was still trembling in fear. But now, the bitter end was over. There was no need to steal the monkey wine. The big Monkey King directly told him to get it himself. Duan Lingtian took out a gourd of monkey wine and stored it in his storage ring. Only then did he stand up and look at the big Monkey King. The big Monkey King nodded its head at him. Its golden eyes emitted a gentle luster. Take these 2 pills. In the future, if any of our tribesmen are poisoned, just let them consume these pills. Duan Lingtian passed the other 2 grade 9 spirit cleansing pills to Great Monkey King. Woo woo. The eyes of the other stone monkeys lit up. They had just seen the effects of these pills and knew how precious they were. Very quickly, Duan Lingtian discovered that the other stone monkeys, including the 2 Monkey Kings, actually bowed to him like a human, causing him to be overwhelmed by the favor. He suddenly felt that these stone monkeys were rather cute. The big Monkey King took the 2 pills from Duan Lingtian and actually bowed to Duan Lingtian. This caused Duan Lingtian to feel a wave of complacency. This was a demon beast at the 4th level of the void prying stage or above. With my current relationship with this group of stone monkeys, if there's any enemy in the future, would I be able to lure him in and ask the Monkey King to help me kill him? Duan Lingtian thought in his heart. But he knew as well that this was only an extravagant hope. It was impossible for him to lure someone to the Hengduan mountain range from afar. Thank you for the monkey wine. I'll be leaving first. I'll come see all of you if I have the chance in the future. Under the gazes of all the stone monkeys, Duan Lingtian waved his hand to them and walked out of the gorge. He was about to walk out of the gorge. Roar! Suddenly, the big Monkey King roared in a low voice. Duan Lingtian's face went grim. This big Monkey King wouldn't be regretting it and wants to repay kindness with enmity, right? However, Duan Lingtian still obediently stopped moving, and his scalp went numb as he turned around to look at the big Monkey King. Only now did he notice that the big Monkey King wasn't enraged, and instead nodded to him before looking at the 2 Monkey Kings and waving its sharp monkey claws, seeming to be communicating with the 2 Monkey Kings. What does it want to do? Duan Lingtian was bewildered in his heart. Right at this moment, Duan Lingtian saw the 2 Monkey Kings nod and directly dash into the monkey cave. In next to no time, the 2 Monkey Kings came out once more. The 2 Monkey Kings held a small gourd in their paws, and they passed it over to the big Monkey King. The big Monkey King took the small gourd and walked over to Duan Lingtian before passing the small gourd to Duan Lingtian. This is... Under his curiosity, Duan Lingtian opened the small gourd and placed it before his nose to smell it. Instantly, a pungent wine fragrance assaulted his nose. Whoosh! The origin energy within Duan Lingtian's body suddenly started to roil, causing Duan Lingtian to feel his entire body burn, and he felt a wave of discomfort. 9 dragons wore sovereign technique, raging python form. Without the slightest hesitation, Duan Lingtian directly circulated his cultivation method, causing his origin energy to circulate according to the cultivation path of the raging python form, bang. Instantly, Duan Lingtian noticed to his astonishment that his origin energy actually directly strengthened and broke through the bottleneck. He directly stepped into the 9th level of the core formation stage. This, Duan Lingtian was dumbstruck. Even if he drank the monkey wine, it was impossible for him to directly break through to the 9th level of the core formation stage in the blink of an eye. At the very least, he would need a few days to digest the alcohol. But now, Chapter 213. Duan Lingtian was stupefied, completely stupefied. What kind of wine was in this small gourd? Lowering his head to take a look at the small gourd, he could clearly see that the wine in the small gourd wasn't the vermilion red color of the monkey wine, but was instead closer to the crimson red color of blood. Instantly, the memories of reincarnation Emperor Wu flashed past Duan Lingtian's mind. Could it be that this is the legendary Monkey King wine? Duan Lingtian's heartbeat suddenly sped up, and his chest rose and fell continuously like a bellows. The Monkey King wine had an effect similar to the Void Advancement Pill, and it was a necessary item for the half-step Void Stage Monkey King to break through to become a demon beast. However, the Void Advancement Pill had side effects, but this Monkey King wine didn't. Besides the effect of the Void Advancement Pill, the Monkey King wine could also increase one's cultivation, and its effect was far superior to the Monkey King wine. My luck is too good, right? Duan Lingtian couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. After all, even if Reincarnation Emperor Wu had experienced 2 lifetimes and encountered many groups of stone monkeys, he still had no luck to encounter the Monkey King wine. Because once the Monkey King wine was brewed, the half-step Void Stage Monkey King would drink it at the first moment and undergo the transformation of a demon beast. Only the Monkey King wine knew how to brew it. If it wasn't voluntary, no matter how strong the existence, it was unable to force the Monkey King to brew the Monkey King wine. Even Reincarnation Emperor Wu had only heard of the Monkey King wine. He had once used force to force a demon beast, the Monkey King, to brew the legendary Monkey King wine. However, that Monkey King would rather die than brew the Monkey King wine for Emperor Wu. It could be imagined how good Duan Lingtian's luck was. The Monkey King wine was something that could only be encountered but not sought. Very quickly, Duan Lingtian noticed that the second Monkey King was eagerly staring at the small gourd in his hand, and was obviously somewhat reluctant to part with it. Presumably, this Monkey King wine was prepared to be used to break through to become a demon beast. However, Duan Lingtian didn't pay attention to it. To him, the Monkey King wine was something that could only be encountered but not sought. But to the Monkey King, he only needed to spend some time to brew it. Looks like I've obtained the true friendship of these stone monkeys. Duan Lingtian knew very well that the fact that the Monkey King could take out the Monkey King wine as a reward meant that the stone monkeys did not treat him as an outsider. Thank you. Duan Lingtian smiled at the great Monkey King. After putting away the Monkey King wine, he swaggered out of the canyon under the gaze of the stone monkeys. What he had just faced made Duan Lingtian feel like he was in a dream. It was simply playing with his heartbeat. However, all in all, he had gained a lot. Duan Lingtian's lips curled into a smile. Young master. After Duan Lingtian walked out of the canyon, Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang also appeared. Looking at the intact Duan Lingtian, they were stunned. Young master, that group of stone monkeys didn't attack you? Earlier, they had seen how Duan Lingtian swaggered out slowly. He did not seem like he was escaping. Woo-woo, suddenly, Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang noticed that a stone monkey had jumped onto a tree at the side of the canyon, and it extended out a hand to wave at Duan Lingtian like a human. It was precisely the stone monkey that was poisoned from before. Subsequently, whoosh, 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 the dense group of monkeys dashed out of the canyon and descended onto the tree outside the canyon before waving at Duan Lingtian in unison. This, Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang were instantly petrified. Who could tell them exactly what had happened? Why did these stone monkeys that were chasing them without letting go and were extremely ferocious become docile like little kittens before their young master? Moreover, they noticed it as well. Amongst these stone monkeys, there was no lack of existences with dark gold fur. According to what their young master said, these stone monkeys were all existences at the 7th level of the nascent soul stage or above, and every single one of them had a strength that wasn't inferior to them. The two of them felt their scalps go numb. In next to no time, their pupils constricted, because they saw two enormous stone monkeys walk out. One of them was over 1.7 meters tall, and the other was almost 1 meter tall. Compared to the other stone monkeys that weren't even half a meter tall, they simply stood out like cranes amongst chickens. They wouldn't be monkey kings, right? Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang's hearts jerked as this thought suddenly emerged in their minds. They noticed as well that when the other stone monkeys faced these two stone monkeys, their sharp eyes obviously contained a sense of reverence mixed within. It was reverence that came from the bottom of their hearts, reverence that came from the soul. Big Monkey King, Second Monkey King, and you group of little stone monkeys, we'll meet again if fate allows. Duan Lingtian was slightly surprised when he saw the entire group of monkeys come out, including the two Monkey Kings, and he waved his hand to bid them farewell. The Big Monkey King and Second Monkey King nodded to Duan Lingtian like a human. Let's go. Duan Lingtian called out to Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang before directly heading down the Hengduan mountain range, preparing to return to the camp. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang were startled awake as they hurriedly followed him. They couldn't help but turn their heads from time to time, only to discover that after Duan Lingtian left, the group of stone monkeys had successively returned to the gorge. Young master, you. Zhang Qian fiercely swallowed a mouthful of saliva. He had too many doubts in his heart. My luck wasn't bad. A stone monkey was poisoned, and I just happened to be able to detoxify it. After that, they treated me as one of their own. Do you have any bottles or other containers on you? As Duan Lingtian spoke, he asked Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang at the same time. The two of them naturally guessed Duan Lingtian's intentions. Their eyes lit up as they each took out a medicinal pill bottle. They only had this kind of container on them. Duan Lingtian took the medicinal pill bottle, took out the large gourd that contained the monkey wine, and filled the medicinal pill bottle for the two of them. This is the monkey wine? Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang took a deep breath and greedily smelled the fragrance of the monkey wine. Yes, this is the monkey wine. However, the increase in your cultivations shouldn't be obvious, as you're both 7th level nascent soul stage martial artists after all. Duan Lingtian nodded. As for the Monkey King wine, Duan Lingtian didn't take it out, nor did he mention it. Although Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang could be considered as one of his own, they would have to leave his side sooner or later. Moreover, the Monkey King wine was limited, and it was only enough to be distributed to those close to him. Moreover, once the Monkey King wine was exposed, it would surely cause a group of half-step void stage experts to plunder it. It's fine, we just want to try something new, and see what's different about the legendary monkey wine. Zhang Qian shook his head and smiled. Zhao Gang nodded as well, obviously thinking the same as Zhang Qian. Right, young master. Those two enormous stone monkeys from before, you called them Big Monkey King and Second Monkey King? Zhang Qian recalled the scene from before and couldn't help but ask. That's right. The stone monkey that's almost 1 meter tall and has fur that's between dark gold and gold is the Second Monkey King. The Second Monkey King is only a step away from breaking through to the void prying stage, and its strength is comparable to a half-step void stage expert. Duan Lingtian nodded. Half-step void stage? Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang gasped. To them, the Second Monkey King was sufficient to easily kill them. Young master, the other one. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang's heartbeats suddenly sped up, and they faintly guessed in their hearts, but didn't dare confirm it. The golden-haired stone monkey that's only slightly shorter than me is the Great Monkey King. This Big Monkey King is a demon beast Monkey King, an existence comparable to the void prying stage. According to my estimations, its strength is at least at the 4th level of the void prying stage. Duan Lingtian continued. Demon Beast Monkey King? Its strength is at the 4th level of the void prying stage, or above. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang were petrified once more and only recovered from their shock after a long time, and they felt their scalps go numb. Earlier, they cooperated with the young master to steal the monkey wine under the eyes of this group of stone monkeys. Unknowingly, they noticed that their clothes were drenched in cold sweat. Seeing Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang's expressions of lingering fear, Duan Lingtian shook his head and sighed. I never imagined that the group of stone monkeys in this transverse mountain range would be so terrifying. I was originally thinking that if there was only a half-step void stage Monkey King, we would still be able to escape unscathed after stealing the monkey wine. But who knew that there was actually a demon beast Monkey King among them, and I didn't even have the time to collect the monkey wine before I was stopped by it. Recalling the scene from before, Duan Lingtian felt his heart tremble with fear. We were lucky this time, young master. You were able to cure their clansmen. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang had a slight lingering fear in their hearts. However, I can be considered to have gotten what I wanted now. Duan Lingtian waved the large bottle gourd in his hand and lightly smiled. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang smiled as well. Right? Don't spread the news that there's a group of stone monkeys here. Suddenly, Duan Lingtian had a serious expression as he warned Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang. Although the group of stone monkeys wasn't afraid of the people of the Crimson Sky Kingdom disturbing them, Duan Lingtian still didn't wish for someone to break their peaceful life. To a certain extent, he could be considered to have acknowledged the group of stone monkeys, and took the group of stone monkeys to be his friends. Don't worry, young master. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang hurriedly nodded. So long as someone stuck their head out from atop the city wall of southern barbaric city, they would be directly shot to death. It was precisely because of this that Nie Fan led the 10,000 Crimson Wyrm army troops to easily sneak into southern barbaric city. Haha, I, He Weian, have been in the army for many years, but it's still the first time I've fought such a satisfying battle. He Weian had an excited expression as he looked at Duan Lingtian, and the space between his brows emitted deep reverence. General He, don't be so excited. It wouldn't be too late to be excited after we've breached southern barbaric city. Duan Lingtian lightly smiled with a carefree expression. Meanwhile, the surrounding group of Paladin Academy students looked at Duan Lingtian with gazes that contained deep reverence mixed within. Especially those 300-star General Department students, they were even more excited. The last time they came, they didn't even make a move before retreating. This time, they had the chance to shed blood on the battlefield, display what they'd learned, and strive for military merits. Within southern barbaric city, within the spacious campsite, a group of generals and strategists were gathered together, and their expressions were unsightly. What happened today is truly strange. Logically speaking, it's impossible for the Crimson Sky Kingdom's army to have so many sharp arrows. A strategist frowned, and the corners of his mouth curled into a bitter smile. I think it's strange as well. Moreover, we've obviously shot and killed many of their people, but their attack didn't slow down in the slightest. Don't they only have an army of 100,000 remaining? How could they possibly launch such a powerful attack after so many people have died? Another strategist nodded, and his tightly knit brows were unable to loosen for a long time. Our soldiers utterly don't dare stick their heads out from the city walls now, as those that stick their heads out will surely die. I'm afraid it won't be long before the Crimson Sky Kingdom's army will arrive at the city walls. A general's face was covered in worry. Kill. Suddenly, right at this moment, an explosive sound abruptly sounded out within the campsite, causing the group of generals and strategists that were gathered together to be dumbstruck. In next to no time, they saw the 10,000-plus Crimson Wyrm army approaching them head-on. It's the Crimson Sky Kingdom's Crimson Wyrm army. Oh my god! How did they sneak in? One by one, the generals and strategists were quickly drowned by the Crimson Wyrm army. Swish! Bang! A firework whistled out from within southern barbaric city before exploding in the sky. Charge in! Duan Lingtian's voice was loud as he abruptly ordered, "Kill! Kill! Kill!" The border army that had been restrained for a few days instantly launched an attack on the city. For a time, shouts of battle shook the heavens, and their imposing manner shot into the sky like a rainbow. When faced with the Southern Champion Kingdom's army that had been thrown into disorder by the surprise attack of the Crimson Wyrm army, the Border Army easily blasted open the city gates and directly attacked the root of the problem, launching a one-sided slaughter. The Crimson Wyrm army and the Border Army cooperated with each other from the inside and outside, and easily killed the Southern Champion Kingdom's army that had their morale greatly reduced. In a single day, half of southern barbaric city flowed with blood like a river. Kill. Duan Lingtian had joined the battle now. Now, the battle was one-sided, and there was already no need for him to command. Swish. The violet myrtle flexible sword whistled out as if it had transformed into a violet bolt of lightning, and every time it flashed out, it would take the life of a Southern Champion Kingdom soldier. Bang! Beside Duan Lingtian, Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun's eyes had turned red from killing. Seeing the Southern Champion Kingdom soldiers that were about to die under his sword being killed by Xiao Sun first, Duan Lingtian couldn't help but glare. Xiao Sun, don't steal my business. Xiao Sun laughed embarrassedly and continued pouncing forward, killing a person every 10 steps, leaving no trace for 1,000 miles. Duan Lingtian's mood surged, and he only felt the blood in his entire body start to boil. Only when the Southern Champion Kingdom only had a group of surrendered soldiers left did the Crimson Sky Kingdom's army stop their slaughter. Now, what Duan Lingtian stepped on were either corpses or blood. Everyone's clothes were soaked in blood. Victory! Victory! Duan Lingtian! Duan Lingtian! Duan Lingtian! The imposing manner of the Crimson Sky Kingdom's army was like a rainbow, and they were currently madly shouting Duan Lingtian's name. Because they knew that if it wasn't for Duan Lingtian today, it would be impossible for them to take revenge for the group of brothers that died a few days ago. If it wasn't for Duan Lingtian, they would be unable to breach Southern Barbaric City and hold their heads high. Southern Barbaric City was the same as relentless thriving city. Half of the city was a campsite, and the other half was a place where people gathered. However, attacking a city and plundering it without harming the commoners was practically a tacit understanding between the various kingdoms. So, although the residents of the northern half of Southern Barbaric City were sorrowful, they didn't think of fleeing. Defeated. We've lost. How can this be possible? A few days ago, the Crimson Sky Kingdom's 110,000-strong army was forced back by our Southern Champion Kingdom's army, and we lost over 10,000 people. Now, the Crimson Sky Kingdom's army is at most 100,000 strong. How could they possibly directly break through our Southern Barbaric City's line of defense? I heard that a military advisor with extraordinary wisdom appeared in the Crimson Sky Kingdom's army, and with unparalleled strategy, they breached Southern Barbaric City without losing a single person. Without losing a single person? Impossible, right? Yeah. How could there be no deaths in war? It's true. I heard that only 100+ soldiers of the Crimson Sky Kingdom were injured, and not a single person died. For a time, the military advisor with extraordinary wisdom of the Crimson Sky Kingdom became the focus of discussion of the residents of Southern Barbaric City. That night, cheers covered the heavens and the earth within Southern Barbaric City, and it practically didn't stop for a moment. It was precisely the Crimson Sky Kingdom's army of 100,000 that was celebrating. Brother Lingtian, let me toast you. He weighed and raised a bowl of wine with a flushed face. He'd been in the army for many years, but it was the first time he'd had such an accomplishment. Without losing a single soldier, he'd taken down Southern Barbaric City that had been in a stalemate with relentless thriving city for many years. He knew that his name would surely be left in the annals of history and be passed down for generations to come. Of course, he also knew that from today onwards, not only would the youth before him be famous throughout the entire Crimson Sky Kingdom, his name would even spread throughout the Southern Champion Kingdom. In the future, the army of the Southern Champion Kingdom would probably flee upon hearing the name of this youth. General Duan Lingtian picked up a bowl of wine and drained it before directly drinking it. Come, drink. Nie Fan was extremely excited as well. Presently, even the old man standing behind Nie Fan looked at Duan Lingtian with a gaze that flickered with a trace of extraordinary splendor. This youth had simply opened up a new path for the Crimson Sky Kingdom. All those years ago, even the senior Marquis of the Divine Might Marquis estate didn't have such a terrifying accomplishment. Without losing a single soldier, annihilating the southern barbaric city's army of 100,000. Simply heaven-defying. Duan Lingtian, you're the pride of our Paladin Academy. In the distance, a Star General Department senior student stood up and looked at Duan Lingtian as he drank the wine in his bowl in one gulp. Exactly, you're the pride of Paladin Academy. For a time, all the other Paladin Academy students, including Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun, stood up and toasted Duan Lingtian one after another. Breaching the Southern Champion Kingdom's southern barbaric city this time was a brilliant military merit. It could be imagined that when they returned this time, they would all receive rewards. This had an extremely great effect on their future. Moreover, they were clear that all this was given to them by Duan Lingtian. Thank you, young Master Lingtian, for helping us brothers take revenge. Chapter 215. Come, cheers. Duan Lingtian was infected by the atmosphere as well, and he stood up with a heroic spirit that shot up to the clouds as he finished the wine in one gulp. In his previous life, he was born in the army, so he quickly got along well with the 100,000 officers and soldiers present, drinking until deep into the night before resting. Early the next morning, a group of people left southern barbaric city and headed towards the Crimson Sky Kingdom. It was precisely the Crimson WYRM army. Now that southern barbaric city had been completely captured, the next matter was the border army's matter. As reinforcements, their mission had already been completed. Now, they returned to the imperial city. The 10,000-plus cavalries of the Crimson WYRM army only spent a few hours to traverse the Hungduan mountain range and arrive at the Crimson Sky Kingdom's relentless thriving city. The residents of Relentless Thriving City stood outside the city as they watched the Crimson WYRM army depart into the distance, and all of them were extremely excited. Deep into the night last night, a troop of cavalry from the border army brought back the news of the capture of southern barbaric city, causing many residents of southern barbaric city to be excited to the point they couldn't sleep for the entire night. The Crimson WYRM army has once again displayed its invincible might. The success of the Crimson WYRM army's surprise attack this time was all thanks to that young military advisor, Duan Lingtian. Truly unbelievable. A mere 18-year-old youth is actually able to command an army of 100,000 and capture southern barbaric city without losing a single soldier. From today onwards, this Duan Lingtian's name will surely spread throughout the Crimson Sky Kingdom and be passed down for generations to come. I've recalled the son of the Prime Minister, Gu Xian. He's completely unable to compare with Duan Lingtian. At that time, he had an army of 110,000 under his command, but not only was he unable to capture southern barbaric city, he even caused the deaths of over 10,000 border army officers. Gu Xian? In my eyes, he can't even compare to a single strand of Duan Lingtian's hair. Yet he's still the son of the Prime Minister? He's truly a disgrace to our Crimson Sky Kingdom. The residents of Relentless Thriving City deeply remembered the name Duan Lingtian, and they also deeply remembered the name Gu Xian. The former caused them to respect him. The latter caused them to despise him. The Crimson WYRM army arrived in a formidable array and returned in a formidable array. All in all, the reinforcements' trip this time could be considered a complete success. Duan Lingtian and Ye Fan galloped their horses side by side at the front of this 10,000-strong troop, and the taciturn old man followed behind the two of them like a shadow. Let's go back. I wonder what His Majesty will reward us with when we return this time. Our rewards should be about the same. I'm curious as to what His Majesty will reward the Duan Lingtian. The group of Paladin Academy students were in a heated discussion. Duan Lingtian could be said to be the core force behind the capture of southern barbaric city this time, and if it wasn't for Duan Lingtian, the Crimson Sky Kingdom's army would be utterly incapable of accomplishing this. Naturally, Duan Lingtian's reward would be of the highest grade as well. They didn't doubt this at all. Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun walked side by side, and both of their faces revealed knowing smiles. The journey to the battlefield this time caused their blood to boil, and they were incomparably delighted. When we return this time, that fellow Tion who will surely complain again. That's for sure. A bright smile appeared on both of their faces. 2 months later, the group once again returned to the Imperial City. Little Tion, you'll personally lead the Paladin Academy members back. I'll first lead the Crimson Wyrm army back to the campsite. Then I'll go look for my father and enter the palace together to see His Majesty. Outside the Imperial City, Nye Fawn said to Duanling Tion. The Crimson Wyrm army campsite was outside the Imperial City. Duanling Tion nodded. Students of Paladin Academy, follow Duanling Tion back. Nye Fawn loudly ordered. Instantly, the group of Paladin Academy students led by Duanling Tion entered the Imperial City in a formidable array. When they left, there were a total of 312 students in Paladin Academy. Now, there were 311 people. The person missing was precisely Gu Xian, who had left Relentless Thriving City 2 months ago. He was also the son of the Crimson Sky Kingdom's Prime Minister, Gu Yuting. As expected, when Duanling Tian's group returned to Paladin Academy, they caused a great stir. They've returned so quickly? Yeah, even if they rode horses, it would take at least 4 months to travel from here to the northwest border. Now, they've returned in less than 5 months. In other words, they've stayed in the northwest border for less than a month. Is the Southern Champion Kingdom's army so useless? Presently, it was afternoon. Many Paladin Academy students had gathered at the Paladin Academy's martial arts practice grounds, and they were discussing animatedly. In next to no time, along with the group of students that followed behind Duanling Tion, they quickly found out the sequence of events. The Crimson Sky Kingdom's army captured the Southern Champion Kingdom's southern barbaric city without expending a single soldier. This caused those students that didn't head to the northwest border to be dumbstruck. When they found out that all this was due to Duanling Tian's contribution, the gazes they looked at Duanling Tion were filled with reverence, no matter if it was a junior student or a senior student. As for Duanling Tion, who was the center of attention, when he saw the group of students return to Paladin Academy, he greeted Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun, then directly slipped away and returned home. Duanling Tian's breathing became slightly hurried as he stood before the entrance of his own courtyard house. I've returned. Following Xiong Quan opening the courtyard house door, Duanling Tian walked in with large strides. Young master! Young master! In the front courtyard, the manager, Jing Ru, and the 2 servant girls respectfully bowed to Duanling Tian. After Duanling Tian nodded and smiled to them, he impatiently walked into the rear courtyard. In the rear courtyard, the 2 little girls were sitting around Li Ro, as if they didn't notice Duanling Tian's return. Tian. Only when Li Ro noticed Duanling Tian did the 2 little girls react, as if they were struck by lightning. Mom, I'm back. Duanling Tian's face revealed a brilliant smile. In a few more days, it would be a full 5 months since he left. It's good that you're back. It's good that you're back. Li Ro's face revealed a smile, and she obviously heaved a sigh of relief. Young master. Scoundrel. The 2 little girls transformed into 2 bursts of fragrant wind, one from the left and one from the right, and threw themselves into Duanling Tian's embrace, tightly hugging Duanling Tian. I'm back. Duanling Tian embraced the 2 girls in his embrace, and between his brows revealed a trace of excitement. Hiss hiss, right at this moment, a black and a white bolt of lightning flashed over and directly landed on Duanling Tian's hand. They lightly nodded to Duanling Tian, as if welcoming Duanling Tian's return. Haha, little white, little black. Duanling Tian laughed loudly and greeted the 2 little pythons. An entire afternoon, an entire night. Duanling Tian tossed everything to the back of his mind and stuck close to the 2 little girls in the spacious room, making love. Only when it was deep into the night did he fall into a deep sleep while hugging the 2 little girls with a satisfied expression. At this moment, Duanling Tian didn't know. Presently, many people throughout the Imperial City were bound to be unable to sleep. In the afternoon, along with the Divine Might Marquis and his son entering the Imperial Palace, the news of the battle at the northwest border spread out from the Imperial Palace. The Crimson Sky Kingdom's army captured the Southern Champion Kingdom's southern barbaric city in one go. But the first to take credit for this wasn't the Crimson Wyrm army's commander, Nye Fawn, nor was it the Border Army's general, He Weian. It was instead Duan Lingtian. The name Duan Lingtian once again swept through the entire imperial city and became the hot topic of discussion in the various restaurants. I truly never imagined that not only does Duan Lingtian's natural talent in the martial Dao is heaven-defying, he's also so awesome when it comes to commanding an army. He's simply taking every possibility into account and winning every battle. All-round talent. All-round talent. Our Crimson Sky Kingdom being able to produce a Duan Lingtian is truly our Crimson Sky Kingdom's fortune. Exactly, Duan Lingtian is indeed a peerless genius. However, compared to Duan Lingtian, that Prime Minister Gu's son, Gu Xian, is a freak. He's indeed a freak. An army of 110,000 that obeyed his orders didn't even touch the city walls of southern barbaric city, yet over 10,000 people died, whereas the southern champion kingdom's army suffered less than 1,000 casualties. What prime minister's son, Ba? No matter if it was the imperial city's outer city or inner city, there were similar discussions everywhere. All of them were elevating Duan Lingtian and belittling Gu Xian. After all, the two of them formed a sharp contrast. Unlike the imperial city that was buzzing with activity, the prime minister's estate was deathly silent. Within the spacious audience hall, a middle-aged man with a medium build dressed like a scholar stood there, ceaselessly pacing back and forth. Prime Minister. Before long, an aged old man walked in with large strides. The old man's eyes were dazzling like an array of stars, and his footsteps were steady. Obviously, his cultivation wasn't low. How is it? The middle-aged man asked in a low voice. Although no expression could be seen on his face, his anxious eyes completely exposed his anxious heart at this moment. Prime Minister, I've asked. They said that the young master had already left thriving economy city by himself 2 months ago and returned to the imperial city. The old man spoke slowly. What? The middle-aged man's face went grim, and his pupils constricted. What actually happened? Prime Minister, supposedly, the almost 90,000 officers of the border army requested for orders from General He Wei and to kill the young master. Later on, for the sake of the young master's safety, General He Wei and privately allowed the young master to leave. The old man spoke again. Xian, how could you leave by yourself? The middle-aged man's pupils constricted, and he was slightly dazed. As the Prime Minister of the Crimson Sky Kingdom, Gu Yuting's wisdom was extraordinary, and ordinary people couldn't compare to it. He knew that his son had most likely been killed, but he could only suffer in silence, because this matter couldn't be blamed on the border army anymore. How's the news outside now? Gu Yuting took a deep breath, and his wise eyes emitted traces of a ghastly flowing light as he forcefully suppressed the sorrow in the depths of his heart. The old man was slightly hesitant when he heard this. There's no need to worry, speak. Gu Yuting's gaze was like a bolt of lightning as he looked at the old man. Yes. The old man nodded and truthfully told Gu Yuting some of the discussions that were currently giving rise to much discussion in the imperial city. After he finished speaking, the corners of the old man's mouth curled into a bitter smile. Duan Lingtian? He's indeed a rare genius. Chapter 216. Because of Princess Bai Yao, the young master hates him to the bone. The old man slowly nodded when he heard Gu Yuting's question. Princess Bai Yao. Unfortunately, my son doesn't have the life to marry her. Cold lights flickered within Gu Yuting's eyes. However, the people outside actually belittled my son and praised that Duan Lingtian. Since Xian hates him, then there's no need for him to remain in this world. As Gu Yuting finished speaking, he had a calm expression. It was as if he'd transformed into a judge that could easily decide a person's life and death. Perhaps, in his eyes, he'd never taken Duan Lingtian and the Duan clan behind Duan Lingtian seriously. My lord, that Duan Lingtian contributed the most to the capture of southern barbaric city by our Crimson Sky Kingdom's army this time. His Majesty the Emperor will probably heavily reward him, think highly of him, and take him to be a pillar of the kingdom. The old man slightly frowned and seemed to be slightly hesitant. So what? Gu Yuting indifferently said, my son is already doomed. So let me complete his final wish. He hates this Duan Lingtian to the bone, so I'll kill this Duan Lingtian to comfort his soul in heaven, and it can be considered as doing something for him one last time. Even though he guessed that his son had already died, Gu Yuting still quickly recovered his calm. If Duan Lingtian was here, he would surely feel fear towards Gu Yuting, because this sort of person was what he hated the most, and was also the most gloomy and terrifying. Early morning the next day, within the spacious room, Duan Lingtian was served by the two little girls to put on his clothes before walking out of the room in large strides. After eating breakfast, he went to Paladin Academy. Everywhere he passed, it unsurprisingly caused a stir. Duan Lingtian, I like you. Right at this moment, a nearby female student roared at Duan Lingtian with a red face. Duan Lingtian was stunned. The surrounding group of students were stunned as well. Then a wave of booing sounded out. I like you too. Duan Lingtian smiled at the female student and continued to walk forward. Instantly, some of the other female students looked at the female student who spoke earlier with envious gazes. Subsequently, they imitated her. Duan Lingtian, I like you. Duan Lingtian, I like you. In the face of these enthusiastic female students, Duan Lingtian returned a smile. I like you too. All the Paladin Academy students present had a favorable impression of Duan Lingtian's calmness. Duan Lingtian. At this moment, a person was walking towards them from afar. Duan Lingtian frowned. He had never thought that the other party would take the initiative to greet him, and in such a friendly manner at that. The person before him was none other than Su Qing. Su Qing, you've changed. Duan Lingtian's lips curled into a faint smile. The current Su Qing lacked the arrogance of the past. Instead, he was much calmer. At the very least, the feeling he gave Chun Shi wasn't as loathsome as before. Obviously, the incident from before had caused Su Qing to change a lot. I still have to thank you for allowing me to see many things clearly. Also, your chain of 3 strategies is admirable. Su Qing had a friendly expression as he replied with a smile. After being defeated by Duan Lingtian the last time, Su Qing was silent for a few days before recovering. He'd thought about many things clearly and had taken Duan Lingtian to be his target, so he moved forward courageously. This time, as a Grade 2 student of the Star General Department, he joined the Crimson WYRM Army and headed to the northwest border together. He'd witnessed Duan Lingtian strategizing and felt admiration in his heart. Perhaps, from that moment onwards, the resentment he had towards Duan Lingtian in his heart had completely vanished. You're not bad as well. You've actually broken through to the origin core stage. Duan Lingtian's eyes narrowed as he smiled mysteriously. You can even tell? Su Qing was stunned. He'd broken through on the way back to the Imperial City this time, and he'd just broken through less than a month ago. He was sure that he hadn't revealed his strength at the origin core stage before anyone. However, he'd never imagined that Duan Lingtian would be able to see through it with a single glance. Duan Lingtian, you're indeed out of the ordinary. How about we be friends? Su Qing's face was filled with anticipation. Aren't we friends now? Duan Lingtian smiled. Su Qing smiled as well. Then I won't disturb you any longer. I'm going to class. Okay. Duan Lingtian nodded. The short exchange between Duan Lingtian and Su Qing shocked the surrounding crowd of people. Could it be that this is the legendary no discord, no concord? Perhaps. Many people sighed with emotion. Amongst them, some had even personally witnessed the confrontation between Duan Lingtian and Su Qing. At that time, Su Qing wished for nothing more than to kill Duan Lingtian. But now, these two people had actually become friends. The affairs of the world were truly unpredictable. Right, Duan Lingtian said earlier that Su Qing has already broken through to the origin core stage? It seems so. I never imagined that after an origin core stage martial artist appeared in our Paladin Academy's first year, an origin core stage martial artist also appeared in our second year. In next to no time, the topic of the crowd of students shifted to Su Qing. When Duan Lingtian walked into the classroom, he noticed that besides Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun, everyone was looking at him with burning gazes. Duan Lingtian, good job. You've really done well for our Star Mastermind Department's first years. Amazing. The crowd of students in the class looked at Duan Lingtian and weren't stingy with their words of praise. Duan Lingtian returned each and every one of them with a smile. Haha, Duan Lingtian, not long after you left yesterday afternoon, we saw that fellow, Tian Hu. He even said that he'd settle the score with you at noon. Xiao Sun laughed. Settle the score with me? Settle what score? Duan Lingtian was stunned and felt that it was slightly strange. What else could it be? It's naturally the matter of you not helping him get a quota to join the reinforcement army. Xiao Yu laughed as well. F***K. The two of you sold me out just like that? Duan Lingtian glared at them. These two fellows were really unreliable. We didn't sell you out, he guessed it himself. Xiao Sun shrugged and lightly smiled. Right at this moment, Sima Zhangfeng walked into the classroom and stood on the platform. His deep gaze then descended onto Duan Lingtian, and it contained a complicated feeling. Even he never imagined that Duan Lingtian actually had the natural talent of a strategist that was able to lead an army and fight a war. Leading an army of 100,000 to capture the southern champion kingdom's southern barbaric city without losing a single soldier. Such a battle achievement could be used as a teaching material, borrowing an arrow from a straw boat, secretly plotting in Chensong, taking drastic measures to deal with the situation. Adding on the ability to cross the sea by deception, Duan Lingtian, you're really not simple. Sima Zhangfeng glanced deeply at Duan Lingtian as he laughed. Teacher, you're too kind. I was just lucky. Duan Lingtian smiled modestly. Lucky? It wasn't only Sima Zhangfeng. The corners of the mouths of the group of students, including Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun, couldn't help but twitch. This could be called lucky? Just when Sima Zhangfeng didn't know what to say, a figure appeared at the classroom door. Paladin Academy's vice dean, Zhan Xiong. Zhan Xiong nodded to Sima Zhangfeng, then looked at Duan Lingtian and said, Duan Lingtian, His Majesty wants to see you. Come with me. Whoosh. Zhan Xiong's words naturally caused a stir within the classroom as expected. Their Crimson Sky Kingdom's emperor wanted to summon Duan Lingtian? Looks like Duan Lingtian is going to be lucky. I guessed it long ago. This time, Duan Lingtian commanded the army to capture the southern champion kingdom's southern barbaric city and brought honor to the Crimson Sky Kingdom. His Majesty will surely be extremely happy and naturally can't avoid rewarding Duan Lingtian based on his contributions. I wonder what His Majesty will reward Duan Lingtian. Can't we just wait for Duan Lingtian to return and ask? Within the classroom, the students whispered in discussion. Only when Sima Zhangfeng intentionally coughed twice did the entire classroom return to its tranquility. Duan Lingtian followed behind Zhan Xiong and walked out of Paladin Academy. Outside the academy, a luxurious carriage was waiting there, and on both sides of the carriage were two squads of armored soldiers. Acting as the coachman was a young soldier. These armors don't seem to belong to the city guard. Could it be that they belong to the imperial army that guards the imperial palace? Duan Lingtian thought in his heart. Vice Dean, Lord Lingtian, this way please. When the young soldier saw Zhan Xiong and Duan Lingtian arrive, he leaped down from the carriage and respectfully welcomed them into the carriage. When facing Duan Lingtian, a heartfelt reverence appeared on the young soldier's face. As a member of the army, he greatly admired Duan Lingtian's actions at the northwest border. Vice Dean, they're the imperial army? Sitting in the carriage, Duan Lingtian looked at Zhan Xiong and asked curiously. Exactly, they're the imperial army. Zhan Xiong lightly nodded, then said with a smile, It's all thanks to you this time. Normally, even if I wanted to enter the imperial palace, I would prepare my own carriage. But this carriage was personally ordered by His Majesty the Emperor to be prepared for you. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian arrived at the imperial palace. The imperial palace was grand and imposing. Numerous palaces stood in the distance, and they seemed to be extraordinarily grand. Now, the carriage that carried Duan Lingtian entered the imperial palace as if it was entering a place without anyone, and they quickly arrived before a palace at the center of the imperial palace. Under the escort of the young imperial army soldiers that acted as the coachmen, Duan Lingtian and Zhan Xiong walked into the palace. Within the palace, it was a dazzling sight that caused one to be dazzled. After walking into the palace, Duan Lingtian noticed that there were already 4 people present within the palace. The divine might Marquis, Nie Yuan, and his sons stood at the side. On the golden throne, an old man in his 60s that wore a dragon robe sat firmly there. Although he was old, the dignified aura of a person of high status was the most oppressive amongst all the people Duan Lingtian had seen. However, this bit of dignified aura was unable to affect Duan Lingtian in the slightest. Duan Lingtian guessed it. This old man in his 60s ought to be the current emperor of the Crimson Sky Kingdom. At the side of the emperor stood a middle-aged man. The middle-aged man was dressed like a refined scholar. His eyes flickered with a sheen of wisdom, and he had a carefree expression and an extraordinary bearing. If he saw such a figure at any other time, Duan Lingtian would surely praise him in his heart. However, now, slight vigilance arose in Duan Lingtian's heart when facing this person, because, when he just entered the palace, he'd noticed a trace of faint killing intent that enveloped his body. That strand of killing intent flashed before vanishing. Chapter 217. Duan Lingtian thought in his heart and quickly guessed the other party's identity. Besides Prime Minister Gu Yuting, there shouldn't be anyone else that was able to stand on the side of the Crimson Sky Kingdom's emperor and had such a demeanor. This Gu Yuting actually aroused killing intent towards me. Duan Lingtian thought in his heart and faintly guessed the reason. Presently, not only within Paladin Academy, even the entire imperial city was comparing him with Gu Yuting's son, Gu Xian, and imperceptibly stepping on Gu Xian and praising him. Presumably, this Gu Yuting had aroused killing intent towards him because of this. The dignified Prime Minister of the Crimson Sky Kingdom was actually so narrow-minded. Vigilance arose within Duan Lingtian's heart. He was able to discern that this Gu Yuting was extremely difficult to deal with, as he was a person that was adept at concealing his heart. After the killing intent from before flashed and disappeared, Gu Yuting didn't have any other unusual actions. A person that was able to conceal his emotions so perfectly was absolutely not a simple figure. Long live your majesty. Zhang Xiong respectfully bowed to the Crimson Sky Kingdom's emperor and slightly bowed. Vice Dean Zhan, you may rise. The emperor nodded and slowly spoke. Your majesty. Duan Lingtian looked at the emperor and lightly nodded as he bowed. The emperor slightly frowned when he saw Duan Lingtian's actions, whereas Gu Yuting, who stood at the side, had already coldly shouted, Audacious Duan Lingtian, why don't you kneel when you see His Majesty? Could it be that you really think that you can be mentioned in the same breath as Vice Dean Zhan, just because you've made some meritorious contributions? Prime Minister Gu, His Majesty hasn't even spoken. You're making such a ruckus in front of His Majesty, yet you don't know where you place His Majesty? As for whether I bow or not, to put it bluntly, what does it have to do with you? After Duan Lingtian noticed Gu Yuting arousing killing intent towards him earlier, he was filled with vigilance and hostility towards Gu Yuting. Now that he was lectured by Gu Yuting, he instantly retorted. Gu Yuting's face went grim and killing intent appeared in his eyes once again. At this moment, even Nie Yuan and Nie Fawn had a trace of a bitter smile on their faces. This little Tian was actually so wanton and unrestrained before the supreme emperor of the Crimson Sky Kingdom. However, they were not worried. With them around, nothing would happen to Duan Lingtian. Ha 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 ha. At this moment, the emperor laughed. A carefree smile appeared on his aged face as he looked at Duan Lingtian. You are Duan Lingtian? Yes. Duan Lingtian nodded slightly, but when facing the emperor, he was very courteous. You are the first person to contradict the prime minister in front of me. The younger generation will surpass us in time. The smile on the emperor's face never stopped, as if he was still thinking about the scene just now. Gu Yuting was a little embarrassed, but he didn't say anything. Your Majesty is exaggerating. I just think that Prime Minister Gu is exaggerating. It's just a formality. Why do you have to be so rigid? Duan Lingtian said slowly, neither servile nor overbearing. Now that you mention it, I am curious. Why aren't you kneeling? The emperor asked with a smile. Your Majesty, in my eyes, in the entire world, besides the heavens and earth, only my parents are able to make me kneel. As the saying goes, There is gold beneath a man's knees. I kneel to the heavens, earth, and my parents. Duan Lingtian said, There is gold beneath a man's knees. I kneel to the heavens, earth, and my parents. The emperor was stunned when he heard this, and after carefully digesting these words, he laughed carefreely. As expected of the person who was able to allow an army of 100,000 to capture the southern champion kingdom's southern barbaric city without losing a single soldier. You actually have such arrogance. However, you do indeed have the qualifications. I permit you to dispense with kneeling when you see me in the future. How about it? The emperor's current mood was obviously very good, but Prime Minister Gu Yuting's mood wasn't very good, and his eyes that looked at Duan Lingtian occasionally flickered with a trace of gloominess. If one didn't carefully notice the gloominess in Gu Yuting's eyes, one would be utterly unable to notice it. Thank you, Your Majesty. Duan Lingtian hurriedly bowed as he expressed his thanks. All right, the main reason I called you here today is to reward you. This time, you commanded my Crimson Sky Kingdom's army of 100,000 to capture the Southern Champion Kingdom's Southern Champion Kingdom's Southern Champion Kingdom's Southern Champion Kingdom without losing a single soldier. This is an unparalleled military merit. Tell me, what do you want? The emperor looked at Duan Lingtian as he directly asked. As soon as the emperor said this, even Nye Yuan, Nye Tian, and Zhang Xiong, who stood at the side, couldn't help but be slightly moved. Your Majesty, you can't. Gu Yuting hurriedly dissuaded. A young man doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Your Majesty, you. What? Prime Minister, you want to make a decision for me? Although the emperor was old, his eyes narrowed now, and his indifferent words caused Gu Yuting's face to go pale, and he hurriedly knelt on the ground. Your Majesty, this subject absolutely doesn't have such intentions. I presume you don't have the guts. However, Prime Minister, you've slightly lost your composure today. The emperor grunted coldly. Ever since he found out that Gu Yuting's son, Gu Xian, had caused the death of over 10,000 soldiers, a ball of rage had arisen in his heart. It was also because he'd always thought highly of Gu Yuting. Otherwise, even if Gu Xian wasn't present, he would still punish Gu Yuting. After all, it was the father's fault if the son didn't teach the son. Yes, this subject knows his mistake. This subject was anxious about his son. I hope Your Majesty can forgive me. Gu Yuting hurriedly pleaded for leniency. Stand up. The emperor spoke indifferently, and his tone didn't carry the slightest emotion. Thank you, Your Majesty. Gu Yuting stood up. Prime Minister Gu, according to my knowledge, Gu Xian seems to have already returned to the imperial city 2 months ago, right? What do you mean when you say that you miss your son dearly? Could it be that Your Majesty has punished Gu Xian and made Gu Xian reflect in prison? Duan Lingtian's eyes narrowed as he spoke indifferently. After he finished speaking, he ignored Gu Yuting's furious gaze and looked at the emperor as he said respectfully, Your Majesty is wise. The emperor couldn't help but be stunned when he heard this. This little guy, what a formidable mouth. Duan Lingtian, tell me, what do you want? The emperor returned to the previous topic and asked Duan Lingtian once again. Your Majesty, I want you to set up an organization and let me be the head of this organization. Duan Lingtian pondered for a moment before he looked at the emperor and spoke slowly. Oh. When the emperor heard Duan Lingtian's words, he felt that it was a novelty. Then tell me, what kind of organization do you want me to set up for you? The Embroidered Uniform Guard. When Duan Lingtian said these 3 words, there was a glimmer of light in his eyes. The Embroidered Uniform Guard. It was also one of Duan Lingtian's dreams in his previous life. When he thought of the Ming Dynasty in his previous life and the tyrannical Embroidered Uniform Guard, Duan Lingtian's heart palpitated with excitement. To put it bluntly, the Embroidered Uniform Guard was the secret service of the Ming Dynasty, and it was also a blade in the hands of the emperor at that time, possessing monstrous power. Actually, Duan Lingtian only wanted to play around and experience a similar addiction. After all, he would be leaving the Crimson Sky Kingdom soon, and he didn't know if he would have the chance to play in the future. Or perhaps, even if he had the chance in the future, he wouldn't have this thought. Embroidered Uniform Guard? Presently, it wasn't only the emperor who was puzzled, Even Nye Yuan and his son, Zhan Xiong, and even Prime Minister Gu Yuting had puzzled expressions. When Duan Lingtian saw that the emperor's interest had been aroused, he immediately said, "Your Majesty, the so-called Embroidered Uniform Guard is an organization that directly belongs to Your Majesty. Besides, Your Majesty, it isn't subject to the interference of anyone else. As for the Embroidered Uniform Guard's function, it is to share Your Majesty's burdens and eliminate all injustices in the Crimson Sky Kingdom. For example, helping Your Majesty deal with people who disrespect you. For example, finding the person who poisoned Your Majesty." When Duan Lingtian spoke up to hear, besides the emperor, the expressions of the other 4 people present went pale. "Duan Lingtian, don't talk nonsense. His Majesty's status is lofty. Who would dare poison His Majesty?" Gu Yuting looked at Duan Lingtian and spoke coldly. However, the emperor's following words caused Gu Yuting to be dumbstruck. You're able to discern that I've been poisoned?" The emperor looked at Duan Lingtian and asked with interest, "Your Majesty, not only am I able to discern that you've been poisoned, I'm even able to discern what poison you've been poisoned with. Moreover, I know that you've been poisoned for many years. If it wasn't for Your Majesty's deep cultivation, perhaps you'd have long since." Although Duan Lingtian didn't continue speaking, everyone present was able to understand what Duan Lingtian meant. "Your Majesty, Nye Yuan, and Zhan Xiong looked at the emperor and were shocked in their hearts. His Majesty seems to have admitted that he's been poisoned? A trace of coldness arose in their hearts. Who exactly dared to poison the Crimson Sky Kingdom's emperor? If I agree to your request, can you really help me find the person who poisoned me? The emperor's eyes focused, and a dignified aura enveloped Duan Lingtian's body. Actually, he'd secretly investigated the person who poisoned him for a long time, but he came up empty-handed. Duan Lingtian remained unmoved and smiled indifferently. If your Majesty agrees to my request, not only can I help your Majesty find the person who poisoned you, I can also cure your Majesty's poison. At this moment, Duan Lingtian couldn't help but sigh with emotion in his heart. The spirit cleansing pill is really a good thing. It can be used anywhere. What? Hearing Duan Lingtian's words, the emperor, who originally had a calm expression, couldn't help but be moved. After all, even the Alchemist Guild's guildmaster, a grade 6 alchemist, was helpless against the poison he was afflicted with. He'd practically resigned himself to his fate. According to his estimation, he could only live for another half a year at most. So, to the outside world, he'd always declared that he was sick and not poisoned. Actually, with his cultivation, how could he possibly be sick? "You can really cure the poison for me?" The emperor took a deep breath and stared fixedly at Duan Lingtian. His emotions were slightly agitated, as if he'd grabbed onto a life-saving straw. If the poison was cured, he could at least live for a few more decades. "Your Majesty, if you don't believe me, I can refine a medicinal pill for you to suppress the poison in your body right now. It's enough to suppress a portion of the poison in your body and allow you to live for another year." Duan Lingtian's face was carefree, and his body emitted strong confidence. "You are an alchemist?" The emperor was stunned. "Chi." Duan Lingtian flipped his hand, and a strand of pill fire was faintly discernible. In an instant, everyone present, except for Nye Yuan and his son, the emperor, Zhan Xiong, and Gu Yuting, were all stunned. This Duan Lingtian, besides having a heaven-defying natural talent in the martial Tao and a heaven-defying natural talent in military advisor, he's even so heaven-defying in alchemy? An 18-year-old grade 9 alchemist. Chapter 218. Duan Lingtian couldn't be bothered to pay attention to Gu Yuting's ridicule. In next to no time, under Duan Lingtian's request, the emperor ordered someone to find a pile of medicinal herbs for Duan Lingtian, and it was precisely a portion of the medicinal herbs required to refine the grade 9 spirit cleansing pill. Duan Lingtian didn't ask the emperor to prepare a few of the medicinal ingredients, because he held back and didn't plan to refine the complete grade 9 spirit cleansing pill for the emperor to consume. Since ancient times, kings were the most heartless. He wasn't unfamiliar with this saying, so he held back. If he were to refine the complete grade 9 spirit cleansing pill, it would be able to easily eradicate all the poison in the emperor's body. But in this way, between him and the emperor would undoubtedly hold the initiative. Even if the emperor still set up the embroidered uniform guard for him, he would surely be restrained in every aspect and couldn't act freely. So he planned to keep the emperor in suspense and make the emperor ask him for help. In this way, the embroidered uniform guard under him would be able to do as they pleased. After all, there was an emperor supporting him from behind. Although the incomplete grade 9 spirit cleansing pill was unable to eradicate the poison in the emperor's body, it could help him temporarily suppress a portion of the poison. What a miraculous medicinal pill! I can feel that the poison in my internal organs has been suppressed by quite a bit. After the emperor consumed the incomplete grade 9 spirit cleansing pill, his eyes lit up and a pleasantly surprised expression appeared on his face. Your Majesty, you need to consume this detoxification medicinal pill for a long period of time before it can completely eradicate the poison in your body. If you don't consume it for a period of time, the poison in your Majesty's body will relapse once again, and it might even be even more violent than before, like a scourge. So in the future, I'll refine this detoxification medicinal pill for your Majesty every once in a while. Duan Lingtian lightly smiled at the emperor, and his eyes flickered with flowing lights. Only he knew what he was thinking in his heart. Duan Lingtian, why don't you refine more detoxification medicinal pills for me? The emperor looked at Duan Lingtian with a burning gaze. As the supreme emperor of the Crimson Sky Kingdom, he was naturally able to discern what Duan Lingtian was thinking, and it was none other than wanting to use this to threaten him. And if he wanted to live, he had no other choice. Your Majesty, this detoxification pill is extremely difficult to refine. Unless I recuperate for more than a month, I don't have the confidence to refine it successfully. Duan Lingtian naturally declined. He understood that the rarer something was, the more valuable it was. Duan Lingtian, since that's the case, why don't you contribute the formula for the antidote? There are many alchemists in the palace who can serve His Majesty better. Gu Yuting looked at Duan Lingtian and said slowly, Prime Minister Gu, I'm really sorry, but I won't share my pill formula with anyone. Duan Lingtian glanced at Gu Yuting calmly. He couldn't be bothered to beat around the bush in front of Gu Yuting. Not even His Majesty? Gu Yuting's lips curled into a cold smile, as if he wanted to use the emperor to force Duan Lingtian. Prime Minister Gu, don't scare me. If I'm scared by you and forget the pill formula, then I won't be able to refine it myself in the end. At that time, if His Majesty doesn't have any detoxification pills to use and the poison relapses again, then all the blame will be borne by you alone. Duan Lingtian's eyes narrowed as he lightly smiled. You. Gu Yuting's face went pale. At this moment, the divine might Marquinha Yuan stood out and looked at the emperor. Your Majesty, according to what I know, pill formulas are of extraordinary significance to alchemists, and that detoxification pill formula ought to be Duan Lingtian's unique pill formula. To an alchemist, a unique pill formula is more important than his life. The Marquis is right. Your Majesty, this point is understandable. Zhang Xiong stood out as well and spoke up for Duan Lingtian. What? Could it be that you're worried that I'll forcefully seize this little fellow's pill formula? The emperor smiled indifferently as he looked at Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian, I approve your request. From today onwards, I'll issue an edict to establish the Embroidered Uniform Guard, and you will be the commander of the Embroidered Uniform Guard. As for the members of the Embroidered Uniform Guard, the Divine Might Marquis will be in charge of dispatching them. How about it? As he finished speaking, the emperor looked at Nye Yuan. I have no objections. Nye Yuan received his orders. Thank you, Your Majesty. Duan Lingtian nodded and smiled to the emperor. The Prime Minister Gu Yuting, who stood at the side of the emperor, had an extremely unsightly expression. Embroidered Uniform Guard, directly subordinate to the emperor and only obey the emperor's orders. The commander of the Embroidered Uniform Guard, Duan Lingtian, was only responsible to the emperor and had the authority to act first and report later. Along with the emperor's edict, the entire imperial city was stirred. Embroidered Uniform Guard. Before today, this name was so unfamiliar to everyone. But now, it caused everyone to be dumbstruck. When had such an organization appeared in the Crimson Sky Kingdom? Even though I knew that Duan Lingtian had made a great contribution this time, and that the Emperor would reward him heavily, I never imagined that it would be so exaggerated. Once the Embroidered Uniform Guard is established, he, as the commander of the Embroidered Uniform Guard, would simply be equivalent to the Emperor's spokesperson. Too exaggerated. Once the Embroidered Uniform Guard is established, the Imperial City will probably be in turmoil again. Duan Lingtian, at the mere age of 18, is already practically standing at the peak of the Crimson Sky Kingdom. It's hard to imagine. The entire Imperial City was filled with similar discussions. Divine Might Marquis Estate, within the audience hall. Little Tian, you really have guts, even daring to threaten His Majesty the Emperor. The Divine Might Marquis Nye Yuan shook his head and smiled. He was slightly surprised when he recalled the scene he saw in the Imperial Palace earlier. Truly a newborn calf that isn't afraid of a tiger. I was frightened by you earlier. Nye Fin looked at Duan Lingtian as well and laughed bitterly. Duan Lingtian lightly smiled. I was originally asking a tiger for its skin in this matter. Uncle Nye, besides Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang, I only need 9 people from the Embroidered Uniform Guard, but they must be elites. What counts as elites? Nye Yuan glanced deeply at Duan Lingtian and was slightly surprised that Duan Lingtian only needed so few people. 8 of them must be existences that are at least on par with Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang. As for the last person, I want the half-step void stage. As Duan Lingtian finished speaking, flowing lights flickered within his eyes. Half-step void stage? Nye Yuan and Nye Fan were both shocked. Nye Yuan returned to his senses and scolded with a smile. You kid! You asked me for 8 people whose strengths aren't inferior to Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang, and my heart already ached. But now, you've directly demanded an exorbitant price and directly asked me for half-step void stage experts. Do you think half-step void stage experts are cabbages sold in the market? Uncle Nye, if you're able to send the 9 people I need to me, I'll give you a great fortuitous encounter. Duan Lingtian's eyes slightly squinted as he smiled mysteriously. What great fortuitous encounter? Nye Yuan looked at Duan Lingtian with a bewildered expression. Even the nearby Nye Fan had his interest aroused. Uncle Nye, have you heard of the monkey wine? Duan Lingtian asked with a smile. Monkey wine? What? You have it, kid? Nye Yuan's eyes lit up and he was slightly surprised, whereas Nye Fan's breathing instead became hurried. To Origin Core Stage martial artists, the monkey wine was a precious treasure that could increase their cultivation. Since Uncle Nye knows of the monkey wine, then have you heard of the Monkey King wine? Duan Lingtian asked again. Monkey King wine? Nye Yuan shook his head. As for Nye Fan, he didn't even know. The Monkey King wine possesses a medicinal effect comparable to the Void Advancement Pill. Duan Lingtian glanced deeply at Nye Yuan, then slowly said, I think that Uncle Nye ought to be interested in this, right? Void Advancement Pill? Nye Yuan and Nye Fan were both stunned. Nye Yuan was the first to react. His pupils constricted as his breathing became hurried, and his chest rose and fell like a bellows. Little Tian, is what you said true? Duan Lingtian didn't directly answer Nye Fan and continued. With Uncle Nye's current cultivation that's only a step away from the void prying stage, if you have the assistance of the Monkey King wine, you'll surely be able to successfully break through to the void prying stage within half a year and welcome the 6-9 heavenly tribulation. You little fellow even know of the 6-9 heavenly tribulation? Right at this moment, an aged figure silently walked in. It was precisely the senior marquis of the Divine Might Marquis Estate. Grandpa Nye. Duan Lingtian didn't notice the old man's arrival in the slightest, and he couldn't help but sigh in his heart. As expected of an existence at the void prying stage, even if he's unable to utilize origin energy, his cultivation is still there. Father. Grandfather. Nye Yuan and Nye Fan respectfully bowed to the old man. Little Tian, Grandpa Nye will send you 2 half-step void stage experts, and you give Grandpa Nye 2 drops of the Monkey King wine. How about it? The old man looked at Duan Lingtian, and his eyes flickered with traces of flowing lights. 2 half-step void stage experts? Duan Lingtian was shocked. Looks like the divine Might Marquis estate's resources and reserves were even more formidable than he'd imagined. Duan Lingtian returned to his senses and lightly smiled. Grandpa Nya, I'm afraid this won't do. I don't have much of the Monkey King wine in my possession. The old man didn't mind and smiled. Then leave one drop for your Uncle Nya, and Grandpa Nya will still send you 2 half-step void stage experts. How about it? I truly never imagined that you'd actually be able to encounter a thing of legend like the Monkey King wine. Obviously, the old man knew what the Monkey King wine was. Thank you, Grandpa Nya. Duan Lingtian smiled, then said, Grandpa Nya, I still have a piece of good news to tell you. I ought to be able to condense a grade 8 pill fire in a few days, and at that time, I'll be able to refine a grade 8 spirit cleansing pill for you. Once you consume the grade 8 spirit cleansing pill, the toxic poison in your body will be completely eradicated in 3 months at most. The old man's eyes lit up when he heard this, and they were dazzling like an array of stars. Even Nye Yuan and Nye Fon both revealed pleasantly surprised expressions. Uncle Nye, these are the medicinal materials required for the grade 8 spirit cleansing pill. Duan Lingtian waved his hand and wrote down the list of medicinal materials required for the grade 8 spirit cleansing pill. Of course, he wrote down an extra set of medicinal materials. The other set was prepared to refine the grade 8 spirit cleansing pill for Xiong Quan. After 3 months, not only would the toxic poison in the old man's body be eradicated, even Xiong Quan's cultivation would recover to the void prying stage. Good. I'll immediately order people to gather them. Nye Yuan nodded, and a trace of excitement was revealed between his brows. Here's a drop of Monkey King wine. Duan Lingtian withdrew a medicinal pill bottle and passed it to Nye Yuan. Chapter 219. This is the Monkey King wine? I feel that the origin energy in my body seems to have been alarmed by its wine fragrance. Nye Fon looked at the Monkey King wine in Nye Yuan's hand with a burning expression. I never imagined that I'd be able to smell the wine fragrance of the Monkey King wine in my lifetime. I'm truly fortunate. The old man sighed with emotion. As for the person involved, Nye Yuan, he put away the Monkey King wine as if he'd obtained a treasure. Nye Fon's gaze descended onto Duan Lingtian, and he rubbed his palms together. Hee. Little Tian, you, big brother Nye, when you step into the half-step void stage, I'll give you a drop of Monkey King wine as well. Nye Fon hadn't even opened his mouth when Duan Lingtian guessed what he wanted to say and spoke before him, dispelling Nye Fon's thoughts. It wasn't that he was stingy. There might not even be 30 drops of Monkey King wine in that small bottle gourd, and every drop used was a drop less. He had to use it sparingly. Nye Fon laughed bitterly. Half-step void stage. That's a matter of how many years later, big brother Nye. I can't give you the Monkey King wine, but I have quite a bit of Monkey King wine here. Duan Lingtian raised his hand, and a wine jug appeared in his hand. Instantly, the wine fragrance of the Monkey King wine suffused out from the mouth of the wine jug. Good wine. The gazes of the 3 Nye clan men abruptly shone. Before long, the 3 of them had tasted the Monkey King wine one by one. Especially Nye Fon, after drinking the Monkey King wine, he sat cross-legged on the spot and circulated his cultivation technique in meditation, and only opened his eyes after a long time. Just a little bit more to break through. After Nye Fon woke up, his gaze abruptly shone. He subconsciously grabbed the wine jug, but noticed that the wine jug was empty. Where's the wine? Nye Fon had an astounded expression. It was finished by Grandpa Nye and Uncle Nye. Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled. Before Nye Fon could react, he fled, not forgetting to remind the old man and Nye Yuan. Grandpa Nye, Uncle Nye, I'll leave my embroidered uniform guard members to you. I'll come get them tomorrow. Grandfather, father, why didn't you leave a single drop for me? I only drank a cup. A cup. Nye Fon had a bitter expression as he grumbled. Stupid brat, if you have the time to complain here, why don't you go ask little Tian for another pot of monkey wine? The old man shook his head and smiled as he reminded. Yeah, how could I forget? He's stingy with the Monkey King wine, but he can't be so stingy with the monkey wine. Nye Fon hurriedly stood up and chased after him. However, he found that Duan Lingtian was long gone. Good lad. No wonder you were in such a hurry to leave. Nie Fon had a helpless expression as he cursed with a smile. After leaving the Divine Might Marquis estate, Duan Lingtian headed straight home. He locked himself in his room and began to refine the dragon blood pill. An hour later, the dragon blood pill was completed. After consuming the dragon blood pill, Duan Lingtian finally completed the tempering of his body for the 9th level of the core formation stage. The second transformation of the 9 Dragons War Sovereign technique, the Raging Python form, could be considered to have reached perfection. Without the slightest hesitation, Duan Lingtian used his origin energy to draw out more than half of the remaining medicinal strength of the Monkey King wine he drank last time, and started circulating it in next to no time. The bottleneck of the 9th level of the core formation stage was directly broken through. Duan Lingtian's cultivation stepped into the origin core stage in one go. After stepping into the origin core stage, there was still some medicinal strength of the Monkey King wine remaining. 9 Dragons War Sovereign Technique's 3rd form, Wyrm Python form. Duan Lingtian started circulating his new mental cultivation method and consumed the remaining medicinal strength of the Monkey King wine. Only when he approached the bottleneck of the 1st level of the origin core stage was the medicinal strength of the Monkey King wine completely exhausted. He lightly stretched his hands. Crack, crack, crack. The clear sound of bones rubbing together sounded out. Suddenly, his fists clenched tightly. Whoosh! Instantly, 31 ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form above Duan Lingtian. This was the strength of Duan Lingtian after stepping into the 1st level of the origin core stage. When an ordinary martial artist breaks through to the 1st level of the origin core stage, their full strength would only be the strength of 20 ancient mammoths. Compared to when he was at the 9th level of the core formation stage, he had the strength of 8 ancient mammoths more, whereas Duan Lingtian actually only had the strength of 8 ancient mammoths more than before. This strength of 8 ancient mammoths was added on top of his original foundation. When he stepped into the 9th level of the core formation stage with the Raging Python form mental cultivation method and completed the tempering of his fleshly body, he already possessed the strength of 23 ancient mammoths. Compared to an ordinary 9th level core formation martial artist, he possessed the strength of an entire 11 ancient mammoths more. Whereas now, Duan Lingtian, who broke through to the 1st level of the origin core stage, still possessed the strength of 11 ancient mammoths, more than an ordinary martial artist with the same cultivation. This 9 Dragons War Sovereign Technique's 3rd form, the Wyrm Python form, seems to not have the tempering of the fleshly body. In other words, I can only cultivate step by step and increase my strength of ancient mammoths that is similar to an ordinary martial artist. However, no matter which level I cultivate to, I still possess the strength of 11 ancient mammoths more than a martial artist with the same cultivation. Duan Lingtian quickly noticed this problem. He knew clearly in his heart that it was precisely because of this that he could similarly be called invincible amongst martial artists with the same cultivation. However, in general, along with the increase of his cultivation, his strength would be pulled closer and closer to martial artists with the same cultivation, and his advantage would become smaller and smaller. Duan Lingtian felt a trace of pressure. I must work hard and cultivate. So this is the origin core stage. Duan Lingtian could clearly see the situation within his dantian through inner vision. Presently, within his dantian, the origin energy that had originally formed into the form of scattered clouds and mist had actually condensed into an origin core. The origin core was completely snow white and was precisely condensed from origin energy. The origin core stage was also named because of this. The strength of an origin core stage martial artist was stored within the origin core within the dantian. If the dantian was crippled, then the origin core would lose its support and completely vanish, which was equivalent to the origin energy in the entire body dispersing, just like Feng Tong and Xuelang, who were crippled by Duan Lingtian that day. Before long, Duan Lingtian went to the rear courtyard to find the 2 little girls and his mother, Li Ro, and gave 3 pill bottles to them. Within every pill bottle was a drop of Monkey King wine. Young master, what's this? Kerr had a curious expression as she asked. Li Fei, and Li Ro looked at Duan Lingtian as well. This is Monkey King wine. Kerr, haven't you broken through to the 9th level of the core formation stage now? So long as you consume this Monkey King wine and circulate your cultivation method, it'll be sufficient to assist you in breaking through to the origin core stage. Duan Lingtian smiled as he said to Li Fei, Little Fei, you're the same as well. You're only a sliver away from breaking through to the 9th level of the core formation stage. Relying on this drop of Monkey King wine, not only will you be able to break through the bottleneck and step into the 9th level of the core formation stage, you'll even have the chance to break through to the 1st level of the origin core stage in one go. Needless to say, Duan Lingtian's words caused the two little girls to have excited expressions, and they directly returned to their rooms to cultivate. Mom, you go cultivate as well. Duan Lingtian looked at Li Ro and lightly smiled. Li Ro lightly nodded, then followed behind Kerr and Li Fei to return to her room. Duan Lingtian left the courtyard house and found a clothing store. Then, according to the memories of his previous life, he ordered 13 sets of skyfish clothes. How long will it take to finish? Duan Lingtian asked the manager. Customer, the 13 sets of clothes you ordered are all very complicated. Even if you rush the work, I'm afraid it will still take 3 days. The manager slowly said. 3 days? Duan Lingtian frowned. Too long. You think of another way. Duan Lingtian raised his hand, and besides the money he handed over earlier, he put down another 10,000 silver bill. The manager's pupils constricted, and he hurriedly nodded. Customer, I understand. I'll get a few more people to work through the night, and it'll surely be completed by tomorrow. Okay. Duan Lingtian nodded, then turned around and left. He found a weapon store and ordered 13 scabbards. Then he bought some materials required for weapon refinement. After he returned home, he refined these materials into 13 spirit sabers. Skyfish clothes, embroidered spring saber. This was the true embroidered uniform guard. The corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth curled into a smile. After the Crimson Sky Kingdom's emperor established the embroidered uniform guard, he also set aside a vast courtyard in the inner city as the embroidered uniform guard's residence. When Duan Lingtian arrived at the courtyard, he noticed that there was already someone waiting there. Commander Duan. As soon as Duan Lingtian entered the courtyard, a middle-aged man came up to greet him. The middle-aged man wore the Imperial Guard's armor, and a trace of dignity was emitted from between his brows. Obviously, he wasn't an ordinary soldier. You know me? You are? Duan Lingtian asked, puzzled. Commander Duan, I'm the Imperial Guard's Chiliarch, Meng Yang. His Majesty ordered me to hand these over to Commander Duan. Soon, Meng Yang handed over a pile of command tokens to Duan Lingtian. These command tokens, except for one that was slightly special, were all exactly the same. All the command tokens had one thing in common, and that was that the words embroidered uniform guard were engraved on them. Chiliarch Meng, sorry to trouble you. Duan Lingtian took the command tokens and nodded to Meng Yang with a smile. Commander Duan, you're too courteous. Meng Yang replied with a smile. Although the person standing before him was only an 18-year-old youth, he didn't dare underestimate him in the slightest. What a joke. This youth was currently the most popular figure in the Crimson Sky Kingdom's army. Ever since they found out about the establishment of the embroidered uniform guard, countless people racked their brains trying to join. Commander Duan. Meng Yang looked at Duan Lingtian and seemed to be slightly hesitant. Chiliarch Meng, is there anything else? Duan Lingtian asked. Commander Duan, I wonder if your embroidered uniform guard is still lacking people? Meng Yang asked. What? Chiliarch Meng wants to jump ship? Duan Lingtian asked with a smile. No, it's a brother under my command. He especially admires Commander Duan. Meng Yang shook his head. So long as there's no problem with his character and cultivation is at the 7th level of the nascent soul stage or above, our embroidered uniform guard will take him, Duan Lingtian slowly said. Meng Yang was dumbstruck when he heard Duan Lingtian. 7th level of the nascent soul stage or above. Even he, a Chiliarch of the Imperial Guard, was only at the 7th level of the nascent soul stage. Meng Yang fiercely gulped down a mouthful of saliva and asked with slight hesitation. Commander Duan, could it be that the members of your Imperial Guard must be at the 7th level of the nascent soul stage or above? Duan Lingtian nodded. Exactly, this is the lowest threshold. Lowest threshold? Meng Yang noticed that his heart was about to jump out. What a fellow. This Commander Duan really wasn't an ordinary person. Chapter 220. The lowest threshold of the embroidered uniform guard was the 7th level of the nascent soul stage. For a time, he became the laughingstock of the entire imperial city, as they all felt that the embroidered uniform guard's commander, Duan Lingtian, was indulging in fantasy. How could an existence at the 7th level of the nascent soul stage, or above, be someone he could recruit as he pleased? At dusk, a red glow filled the sky. Imperial City, City Guard Army Campsite. At the campsite's entrance, 13 tall horses stood still, then 13 figures flipped over and descended from the horses. These 13 people wore uniform attire, flying fish robes. On their waists hung a command token and a narrow and long saber, the embroidered spring saber. Amongst the 13 people, there was a youth in the lead. A trace of immaturity could be vaguely seen on the youth's face. It could be discerned that the youth was about to step into the age of 19 and become a young man. Who are you people? 10 armored soldiers stood at the entrance of the City Guard Army campsite, guarding both sides as they glared fiercely at the 13 people that were approaching. Presumptuous. The youth in the lead grunted coldly, then his cold and indifferent gaze swept past the 10 City Guard Army soldiers. Then he ignored them and directly walked into the City Guard Army campsite. You all. One of the City Guard Army soldiers took a step forward, wanting to stop the youth. However, he was pulled back by one of the people beside him. What are you doing? Didn't you see someone trespass into our City Guard Army campsite? The former frowned. Are you mad? Didn't you see their command tokens? They're the embroidered uniform guard. The latter took a deep breath, and a trace of terror was mixed between his brows. What? Embroidered uniform guard? Isn't the lowest threshold of the embroidered uniform guard the 7th level of the nascent soul stage? Could it be that someone really joined the embroidered uniform guard? Who knows? If I'm not wrong, then the youth in the lead ought to be the embroidered uniform guard's commander, Duan Lingtian. The existence of the embroidered uniform guards is approved by His Majesty the Emperor. Commander Duan is also His Majesty the Emperor's spokesperson. Not to mention us, even the Lord Commander of the City Guard would be afraid of him. Duan Lingtian walked into the City Guard Army campsite and directly headed towards the central tent. Wherever he passed, the city guards would make way for him. Duan Lingtian took the lead, followed closely by the 2 old men, and behind them were 10 middle-aged men. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang were among them. Early in the morning, Duan Lingtian made a trip to the Divine Might Marquis estate and broke away from his fate of being a commander by himself. He took 10 people with him from the Divine Might Marquis estate, including Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang. The current embroidered uniform guard, including him, had a total of 13 people. Lord Commander, the embroidered uniform guards. The embroidered uniform guards are here. A figure rushed into the tent in the center of the city guard's camp and hurriedly reported. What? The expression of the city guard commander, Xue Lu, slightly changed. How many of them came? Including Commander Duan, a total of 13 people. The person who came in continued. 13 people? In other words, besides him, there were 12 existences at the 7th level of the nascent soul stage or above. The Divine Might Marquis is really generous to actually cooperate with that little bastard like this. Right. The Divine Might Marquis was the good friend of that little bastard's father, Duan Rufeng, after all. Xue Lu's face sank as he said to the person who came in, You have some ability to actually pry open my people's mouths. What? Commander Xue, you admit it? Duan Lingtian asked with a smile. So what if I admit it? Xue Lu sneered as his eyes emitted a bone-piercing coldness. Then quickly hand over the compensation for suppressing the shock, and I'll take my brothers to have a good drink. The corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth curled into a trace of a deep smile. You still want compensation for suppressing the shock? Xue Lu laughed, laughing insolently, laughing without the slightest scruple. Duan Lingtian, you seem to have not figured out the situation, right? Could it be that you think the people you brought can go against my city guard army's thousands of officers and soldiers? Let me tell you, Every single one of us here can drown you with a mouthful of saliva. Looks like Commander Shui is very confident. Duan Lingtian's expression was calm, but his eyes flickered with mischief. Humph. Duan Lingtian, don't think that just because you have the title of commander of the embroidered uniform guard, you're really someone. Let me tell you, in front of me, you're nothing. Shui Lu stretched out his hand and pointed at Duan Lingtian's nose, his saliva flying everywhere as he spoke in a condescending tone. Duan Lingtian's expression turned cold. Whether it was in his previous life or this life, what he hated the most was people pointing at his nose and lecturing him. Once, there was a mercenary from Country M's most outstanding seals. Because he pointed at his nose and said a bunch of nonsense, his head exploded with a punch, and he was directly blasted to death. Kill him. Just as Duan Lingtian's killing intent soared to the heavens, Duan Lingtian's voice rang out, incomparably cold. Kill me? Shui Lu laughed, his face full of ridicule and disdain. However, in next to no time, his smile froze. Because his head had already separated from his body, bang, pillars of blood sprayed out, and most of the city guard soldiers present didn't even have the time to react before they noticed that their commander's head had already separated from his body. In the next moment they saw, in the process of the old man standing behind Duan Lingtian, withdrawing his narrow saber, droplets of blood sprinkled beneath his feet. Whereas those Kiliarchs in the city guard army all stared blankly at the old man with faces full of disbelief. They only saw the old man transform into an afterimage, and didn't even have the time to clearly see exactly how many ancient mammoth silhouettes appeared above the old man before their commander was killed. They were extremely sure that this old man was at least in existence at the 9th level of the nascent soul stage. His strength was absolutely not inferior to their commander. Because of the sneak attack, he was able to succeed with a single strike. Humph. Duan Lingtian snorted coldly, then slowly turned around with the 12 embroidered uniform guards behind him, then walked out of the campsite with large strides. Wherever he passed, the soldiers of the city guard would make way for him. Now that their commander was dead, they naturally wouldn't foolishly charge forward to give their lives away. The people brought by this embroidered uniform guard commander weren't only at the 7th level of the nascent soul stage, and there was no lack of 9th level nascent soul stage experts amongst them. In terms of strength, a 9th level nascent soul stage martial artist could become a commander in any army of the Crimson Sky Kingdom. However, now they were willing to follow behind this embroidered uniform guard commander and serve him. After walking out of the city guard army campsite, Duan Lingtian mounted his horse and a trace of a smile appeared on his face. This feeling was indeed extremely satisfying. Today, he really had a good time. If someone knew what Duan Lingtian was thinking, it was unknown what expression they would have. Right when Duan Lingtian brought his 12 subordinates back to the embroidered uniform guards campsite, a shocking piece of news spread out from the city guard army campsite and instantly swept through the entire imperial city. The embroidered uniform guards commander, Duan Lingtian, brought along 12 embroidered uniform guards to charge into the city guard army campsite and kill the city guard army commander, Shui Lu, before leaving unhurriedly. This piece of news caused many people who didn't look favorably upon the embroidered uniform guard and secretly ridiculed the embroidered uniform guards commander, Duan Lingtian, to be a lone commander, to be completely dumbstruck. The threshold for the embroidered uniform guard is so high, yet they're still able to recruit 12 people, 12 existences at the 7th level of the nascent soul stage or above. This group of embroidered uniform guards is simply an elite group, the representative of quality over quantity. I heard that the person that killed the city guard army commander, Shui Lu, was only an embroidered uniform guard under Commander Duan's command. He only used a single strike to kill Commander Shui Lu. I heard of it as well. According to my estimations, the strength of that embroidered uniform guard is surely a figure at the 9th level of the nascent soul stage. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.